Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable, see playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Side Story Chapter 42 The Third Zone 2. That person is So Young's uncle. From behind the second floor banister, Min Chae-young peeked out with wide eyes. She looked at the man with eyes and hair as dark as the night sky, and a composed attitude and walk. The man looked indifferent, but he was good-looking. He closely resembled Sesha, who appeared cold on the outside but was actually the nicest person ever. Well, it made sense they resembled each other. Chae-young had heard Sesha's dad and uncle were identical twins. A part of Chae-young had always wanted to meet Yi and Woo because Sesha spoke about him so much. He was someone who sacrificed his entire life for his family. Sesha said without him, nor she, her mother, grandmother, and grandfather would be able to live the lives they did today. Chae-young didn't know the specifics, but Yi and Woo seemed to be outstanding as a player too. So when Sesha called out, "Uncle," in a bright voice, Chae-young realized it was Yi and Woo and snuck expectant glances at him. Even if she wanted to say hi, he probably didn't know her at all. But, he's scary, that was the first thing that popped into Min Chae-young's head. No, actually, it wasn't enough to express what she felt. Yi and Woo felt so far like he was something she would never be able to reach. It wasn't possible to describe him as being vast either. He was just so colossal it was hard to see his limits. Once, Chae-young had seen a video that explained Earth's size. She saw how small Earth was when it was compared to other planets, and how many galaxies with larger planets there were. She felt dizzy just by looking at it. That was how she felt looking at Yi and Woo. No, it was even more than that. With Earth, she was able to grasp sizes, but with Yi and Woo, she could feel it. Something in her head shook. It was like a spool of thread she didn't even know existed had been unraveled. Min Chae-young flinched, not understanding what it was. Quote, open corner bracket close corner bracket. Then, Min Chae-young made eye contact with Yi and Woo, who turned in her direction. Min Chae-young jumped in surprise and hid behind the banister again. Thump, thump, thump. However, her surprised heart wouldn't calm down, as if it was still alive. Open hollow corner bracket hubby. Sob, sob, you're too cruel. How could you leave me? What did a poor girl like me do for you to leave? You're so mean. If someone heard this, they'd think it was a pitiful young wife resenting her old lover for leaving. However, the voice was husky and rough, and the person pretending to be a pitiful young lady was a skinhead with copper skin. I wish I was blind. Sesha seriously contemplated poking her eyes with her fingers. That idiot, Laplace, stopped at nothing. Where did he find the courage to act like that while she was in the middle of tattling on him? Did he lose all sense of fear because he'd already died once? Or did he really just enjoy being beaten up? She didn't understand. To be precise, she didn't even want to understand. Kronos, who had seen Laplace's absurd actions as much as Sesha had, looked disgusted too. Only Rhea was smiling, her hand covering her mouth with an, "Oh, dear," motion. Sesha felt like her grandmother was too kind to Laplace. She said something about how Laplace was very cute or something. It was an insight Sesha didn't want to have. Laplace. Yi and Woo covered his face with a palm, as if he felt a migraine coming on, and sighed. Laplace had been like that in the tower, and apparently, he was still like that. Open hollow corner bracket yes, master. Please speak. Is there anything you'd like to order me to do? Perhaps a warm bath, lunch, or... Laplace paused his pitiful wife act and suddenly spun like a top. Then, the clothes he was wearing made popping noises and transformed into a maid outfit. He was copying the magical girl outfits from the TV shows Sesha watched when she was younger. He slightly lifted his skirts and made a high-pitched squeal. It was an instant transformation. The dark legs showing from beneath the short dress were thick and hairy. Sesha and Kronos had dumbfounded expressions. All emotion disappeared from Yi and Woo's face as well. His face didn't seem to have any blood. Get down on your head. Open hollow corner bracket. Oh my, so dirty. Can't you see I'm wearing a dress? Based on how Laplace winked, it was clear he still wasn't in his right mind. Sasha. Yes. Uncle. I'm sorry. No. I'm used to it now. Ha. Ha ha ha. The joy was absent from Sasha's laughter. Laplace seemed to be in even higher spirits now that Yianwu had returned. Do you have any carrots at home? Carrots. Sasha tilted her head at Yianwu's random question. But just then, Laplace visibly flinched, and Sasha's gaze whipped toward him. Laplace whistled, pretending as if nothing happened, but he couldn't avoid Sasha's sharp eyes. She narrowed her eyes at him and asked, "Hey, pervert bunny. Open hollow corner bracket hoo. What is it? You're sweating. Open hollow corner bracket I don't know what you're talking about. Hoo. Uncle, carrots, right. Yeah, just a minute, we have some left over from last night." Sasha didn't know what it was, but it was related to that perverted bunny's weakness. She made a dash to the kitchen, and Laplace hurled his body at her with wide eyes. Open hollow corner bracket Miss Sasha. Stoop. However, the shadow moved before Laplace's large body was airborne. The shadow let out tens of tentacles and left him tied on the ground. Open hollow corner bracket no. For the first time, Laplace, the creature who panted no matter how hard he was beaten, was crying out for real. In the meantime, Sasha quickly brought a carrot from the fridge and waved it in front of Laplace. Open hollow corner bracket eek. Laplace screamed, twisting to move away from the carrot. Get it away, please, please. To somewhere I can't see it. Ah, the juice from the carrot is falling. Ah, it touched me. My skin, my milky skin is rotting. Ah. Quote. The pale Laplace was really terrified of the carrot, and when water drops remaining from washing the carrot fell on his foot he made a ruckus. It was as if he touched something no being should ever touch. Sasha looked at Laplace's foot to see if his skin was really melting as he screamed, but the water just dripped down his leg normally. He was completely fine. However, he rolled around the middle of the living room in fear. When Sasha and Kronos looked at Yianwu with speechless faces, Yianwu responded with a shrug. I don't know either, but that punk is strangely terrified of carrots. Oh, he hated onions too. Try using that next time. Sasha had a dumbfounded expression again. Although it was due to a different reason than before, Laplace was the cause of both. A carrot-hating bunny. The idea that bunnies loved carrots was actually only something that originated from a famous portrayal of an animated bunny, but bunnies didn't hate carrots either. However, that didn't seem to be the case for Laplace. Logic went out of the window with this perverted bunny. I see. Smirk. However, none of that was important. Sasha had a huge grin as she looked at the carrot. To Laplace, she seemed like a vicious predator who'd discovered her prey. She said, "Uncle, hold tight to him please." Sure. More shadow tentacles soared out and wrapped around Laplace when Yianwu replied. It cocooned Laplace, making it impossible for him to move. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Sasha couldn't contain the laughter that came from deep within. Her bizarre laughter only increased in volume as she strode toward Laplace. Thump, thump. Each of her footsteps echoed in Laplace's ear like she was an executioner coming to finish him off. Hey. Open hollow corner bracket Miss Sasha. Why don't we see calm down first? Calm down. Sasha's neck twisted at an odd angle. Sweat beaded on Laplace's copper skin. Why yes. Please calm down. Oh, our cute and adorable Miss S. Sasha is someone who knows how to be kind to others. So please put that horrifying object down and... Sure, I'll put it down. Here, the location Sasha was speaking about was on Laplace's knee. Open hollow corner bracket NNN. Uncle, please shut this guy's mouth. Open hollow corner bracket ERP. URRRRRP, ERP. Laplace continued to make a ruckus even while tied up, but he couldn't resist Yianwu's binds. Talk. The moment the carrot landed on his knee, he let out a pitched scream. Eek. It was an unspoken secret that Laplace fainted for the first time in his life that day. Of course, no one pitied him. Open hollow corner bracket Heg. I've been dirtied, I tell you. Laplace sniffed despondently. Yianwu, Sasha, and the rest of the family paid Laplace no mind as they began to speak. Anyhow, what's with the sudden visit? I was thinking of going to see you actually. Did something happen? I'll tell you later since it's a rather long story. More importantly, why are you here? Yianwu realized Kronos' voice was slightly somber, and he looked at the banister. He could feel a familiar energy, something similar to the Martial King's. He thought that might have to do with why Kronos sought him out. So like Kronos asked, Yi and Wu wanted to explain the reason for his visit first. Father, mother. Why are you being so serious? You're making me worry. Of course, go ahead, son. Yi and Wu nodded heavily at Kronos and Rei's responses. I'm going to get married. Quote quote, quote quote, quote quote. It was a bolt from the blue. Kronos, Rhea, and Sesha all dropped their mouths open. Kronos, who was the most surprised, chuckled in disbelief and stood up. It seems like this conversation will get much longer, so I'll go bring us some drinks. Side Story Chapter 43 The Third Zone 3. Clink. The liquor was poured to the brim in a glass cup. The ice clinked together. Yes, father. Did you find another girl? Yi and Wu stared at Kronos for a moment. Quote quote, quote quote. A heavy silence filled the room. Wait, so that wasn't a joke, father? Yi and Wu made a dumbfounded face seeing Kronos' solemn gaze. However, Kronos was still serious. He said, son, I don't know what you're thinking, but loyalty is part of love. How could you toss away a girl who's waited for you for so long? Father, yes, son, if you're going to say nonsense, you can go to Timbuktu and do it. Kronos scratched his cheek awkwardly. So you didn't find someone else? I don't want Adora pulling my hair out. Also, I don't need any other woman. Then how, where else would I use my ability to turn back the wheel? Oh, right, mother. Father's thinking in such an old-fashioned way now that he's retired. Indeed, he keeps on forgetting things these days. You should be understanding, Yi and Wu. I think his hair is starting to become thinner too. Kronos burst up at Rei's sigh. What, my hair's fine. Should I look for a good hair growth cream? I can do that myself. They say angry outbursts mean you're subconsciously thinking it's true. I'm not. Yi and Wu and Rhea continued to tease Kronos for a while after that. Kronos had a sullen face, and Rhea smiled as she looked at him like he was adorable. Looking at his parents, the faint trace of a smile appeared on Yi and Wu's face. This was the kind of relationship he wanted. Yi and Wu began to speak of the reason why he decided to get married, and Kronos stayed sour, but he brightened upon hearing of the girl he had taken a liking to. Rhea chimed in occasionally with, really, and, oh, my, curious about the daughter-in-law she hadn't met yet. She had only heard about Adora from Kronos, so she was most curious. So I think we'll have to have a meeting between the parents. Oh my, honey, we're going to have a meeting between parents. So exciting. Rhea giggled like a young girl. They'd had many children, but they had never attended their children's weddings. Kronos had become absorbed by demonisms before that could happen, and he was chased away from the throne by Zeus. And after he was resurrected, he had Yi and Wu and Jung-woo, but Jung-woo had already met Ananta, so they had no opportunity. They didn't have any in-laws with Ananta either. Yi and Wu's marriage was very new to both Rhea and Kronos. It was something that was natural for others. Kronos smiled wryly at the fact that they hadn't been able to enjoy such pleasures. He was apologetic toward Rhea, seeing her so happy. Then, the in-laws, it'll just be the psychic medium. Kronos trailed off at in-laws, because of how awkward it fell off his tongue. No, Sezong-nim will come too. Kronos didn't understand when he heard Sezong. He soon widened his eyes. But that man is. He's alive. What? Kronos knew that the martial king had awakened as an emperor, then was scattered because of Gaia's curse. Then, Kronos came to a realization. You did something. Yi and Wu looked up, and Kronos and Rhea followed his gaze. They were looking at the second-floor banister, where Min Chai-young was. Yi and Wu said, I saw the ghost girl a moment ago, and the energy I felt from her was familiar. Familiar? Yi and Wu nodded at Kronos' question. That child has something called the star fragment, doesn't she? Quote exclamation mark quote. Quote exclamation mark quote. Kronos and Rhea widened their eyes. So she does. Kronos collected his bearings first. So this is related to the martial king, the first Minar-in-law. Yi and Wu nodded. The star fragments are pieces of Sezong-nim's soul that he left behind after he ascended. Kronos and Rhea finally understood why creatures outside of their domain of perception were able to exist. In Kronos' memory, the martial king was a monster. He was a monster of monsters who'd destroyed Asgard alone and become an emperor solely with his will. If there was no such thing as a system in the tower, Alphron would never have been able to handle him. The same went for the other beings of the heavenly world. The martial king was an outlier who was so powerful even the former god of kings didn't know what his limits were. The pieces left behind when such a being became an emperor. Merely possessing a piece could make you into a monster. Kronos had only met 3 stars, but each of them was as powerful as a beast. It made sense since they were beings who swallowed all the legends in a world line after erasing it, but it made even better sense after hearing it was pieces of the martial king that allowed such evolution to occur. Then what happens to that child? Kronos looked at Yi and Wu anxiously. There were only 2 paths a being with a star fragment could take. They could either be eaten by another star who crossed over from another world line, or they could completely digest the fragment and become a true star. If Yi and Wu declared he'd forcefully retrieve the fragment from Min Chai-young, there was no way to stop him, even if it meant Min Chai-young would get hurt in the process. Kronos and Rhea would probably attempt to stop him, since they now thought of her as a daughter despite only having known her for a short while. Yi and Wu made a disbelieving face after reading Kronos' expression. "Father, I'm not that reckless." "Sure, what exactly do you think of me? Emperor temper. Hasn't it ever occurred to you that the temper's genetic? Apologize now. What are you talking about? How dare you speak to your mother that way when she's sacrificed everything for you both?" Yi and Wu looked at Kronos with an appalled face, as if he was questioning Kronos' conscience, and Rhea shook her head at her preposterous husband. "Don't worry, it's not that difficult to retrieve the fragments. I've already collected a few on the way here. What about the stars? I met them, how pitiful for them. But a few are definitely not to be disregarded. There are some that have even left the universe and the world lines. Outside, are you talking about the other world? I'm talking about night here. No, it's a bit different it's kind of hard to explain." A thought occurred to Yi and Wu mid-sentence, and he suddenly turned his head. "It'll be easier for you to hear for yourself." Quote. Kronos and Rhea were about to ask him what that meant when Yi and Wu suddenly dashed forward. Flash. Dim-witted darkness. I had my doubts, but why is he? There was a thing called the unreal world. Just as there were 2 sides to a coin, there was another side to the existing reality. It originated from the eggshell Pengu had come from. It was a world that wanted to become real but could never attain that dream. Stars had the ability to enter and exit this unreal world. This world was also the 3rd zone the heavenly demon had mentioned. Tigris was currently hiding in the unreal world, looking at what was reflected through the mirror. This was how they weren't able to be caught by beings like Kronos and Rhea until now. He was carefully observing Kronos and Rhea through the unreal world to somehow kidnap Min Chai-young to this place as soon as the opportunity arose, but then, he'd seen something unexpected, the ego of the dim-witted darkness, the Black King. Along with the heavenly demon, also known as the Sacred Light, the Black King was considered to be someone who was a top priority to avoid. A few of Tigris' companions had been erased after accidentally coming into contact with the Black King. It seemed the heavenly demon still hadn't caught on to their presence because he was cooped up in the Chang'an library, but the Black King was currently retrieving star fragments, so they needed to take special care. Tigris attempted to leave right away. A part of him wanted to stay and observe Yi and Wu a while longer, but he didn't want to be a cat that died from curiosity. Thankfully, I haven't heard anything about the Black King being able to touch the unreal world yet. Fortunately, the Black King himself was the universe and the world. That meant it was impossible for him to interfere in the unreal world. However, Tigris wasn't able to continue his thoughts any longer. The space in front of him suddenly divided, and a strong force suddenly began to pull his body. Crash! Before he could resist, Tigris was sucked forward like his collars were tightly being held by someone. Keg. When Tigris came to, he paled. Yi and Wu was looking down at him from right in front of him. The moment Tigris saw those pitch-black eyes, he trembled in fear, unable to utter anything. Like a mouse in front of a snake, all his instincts were telling him not to clash with the being in front of him. "If I can't interfere in your world, all I have to do is force you over here. Isn't that right, Tigris?" Mind went blank after seeing Yi and Wu's cold smile. Yi and Wu's smirk only deepened. "You know why I brought you here, right? You can start talking now." Nod. Tigris nodded frantically in case Yi and Wu suddenly decided to kill him. To live, he needed to ask, how high, if he was ordered to jump. Side Story Chapter 44 The Third Zone 4. Arg, I can't hear anything they're saying. Sesha tried to eavesdrop on the conversation on the first floor with her magic, but it kept on being deflected. Yi and Wu and Adora's love story was definitely something of interest to Sesha. When she heard about their story of a lover who waited for Yi and Wu until the very end, Sesha had mixed feelings. Would she ever be able to find such a person? She found it difficult to ask that question. She herself agreed that she was a very prideful person, so she couldn't imagine ever waiting for someone that long. Based on how similar Yi and Woo's and her personalities were, love could be something that was only attainable through killing oneself. Love seemed extremely difficult. Still, finding one's true love was something every teenage girl hoped for, and Sesha had no intention of giving up on it. Just then, it occurred to Sesha that Min Chae-young had been deep in thought for a while now. Chae-young. Open corner bracket Min Chae-young realized Sesha was staring at her and widened her eyes. Sesha asked with a face of concern, "What is it? Is something wrong?" Open corner bracket No. The thing is, well close corner bracket Min Chae-young stuttered, unable to respond properly, and she squeezed her eyes together when she knew she was going to have to give an answer. Well. It's okay, you don't have to be uncomfortable around me. Open corner bracket The thing is your uncle. Uncle Yi and Woo. Nod. What about him? Open corner bracket I was wondering what kind of person he is. Quote. Sesha didn't understand what Min Chae-young was saying. Why was she suddenly asking about her uncle? Was she curious about him because it was the first time they met? Then, she recalled how Min Chae-young jumped in surprise and hid behind the banister when she met eyes with Yi and Woo. She seemed like she was shy. Even now, as she asked about Yi and Woo, Min Chae-young wasn't able to look Sesha in the eye. But she kept sneaking glances to see Sesha's reaction. Sesha suddenly felt dizzy, as if she had been smacked on the back of her head. Of course, even Sesha herself agreed that Yi and Woo was handsome and tall. It was understandable he was popular. But still, Sesha tightly gripped Min Chae-young's shoulders. Chae-young. Open corner bracket Min Chae-young blinked, taken aback. Sesha had a steeled gaze for some reason. You can't. Open corner bracket Close corner bracket. Do you know how much of an age difference there is between you and uncle? What you're feeling is just an infatuation that a lot of teenage girls feel at that age. Open corner bracket Close corner bracket. You still have a bright future in front of you. What I'm saying is, there will be many people much better than my uncle. Open corner bracket Close corner bracket. Min Chae-young looked confused. She didn't understand what Sesha was getting at. Upon realizing this, Sesha bit her lower lip. Min Chae-young wouldn't understand if she kept on beating around the bush like this. She would have to use shock therapy on Chae-young. She only wanted her kind and soft friend to not get hurt. Listen up, Chae-young. Open corner bracket Yeah, someone's already staked a claim on my uncle. Open corner bracket She's very pretty, Viri, so you should give up on. Open corner bracket T That isn't it. Min Chae-young finally realized Sesha's misunderstanding and shouted with a red face. However, Sesha was still serious. You shouldn't be embarrassed of falling in love at first sight. Open corner bracket It's really not that. It's not. Open corner bracket Yes. Really? Open corner bracket Yes. Then why did you? Open corner bracket I felt something strange from your uncle, so I was just wondering what that was. You felt something. Open corner bracket Yeah Close corner bracket Min Chae-young explained the strange sensation she had when she saw Yi and Woo. Her heart beat faster, and it felt like her blood was being slowly leached out. Aren't those the symptoms of being lovesick? Open corner bracket Arg, it's really not. It's like Close corner bracket Min Chae-young debated her word choice and spoke carefully. My eyes keep searching him. Open corner bracket Then when I make eye contact, my heart throbbed. Open corner bracket So I can't get him off my mind. That's love sickness though. Open corner bracket It's not. Min Chae-young punched her adorable fists in the air. I like someone else. What? Sesha looked beyond stunned, even more stunned from when she thought Min Chae-young liked Yi and Woo. Open corner bracket T That isn't something to be so shocked about. I don't You were so naive that you wouldn't have those kinds of feelings for anyone. Open corner bracket You're making fun of me right now, aren't you? Oops, you caught me. Open corner bracket Hey. Min Chae-young clenched her fists angrily, but Sesha just laughed louder. She's too cute, how can I not tease her? Sesha suddenly realized this might be how Park Yoo-min felt, but she pushed that thought far into a deep crevice of her mind. Then can you speak in more detail? Exactly how did you feel after seeing uncle? If you felt any magic power flowing, was it different than normal? Were you nervous, or did you feel repelled by him? Things like that. Sesha couldn't continue to tease her friend forever. At this rate, Min Chae-young might really get mad, so Sesha decided to lend a serious listening ear. Min Chae-young still looked sulky, but she nodded and continued. So, Isn't that the thing called a fragment? Open corner bracket fragment. After listening to Min Chae-young's explanation, Sesha concluded that the various emotions Chae-young felt wasn't from lovesickness but nervousness. It was the same kind of nervousness a mouse felt in front of a snake. I made a mistake, Sesha apologized to Min Chae-young. She had teased Chae-young, but Chae-young had actually been feeling fear. She couldn't believe she teased a friend without properly knowing the situation first. She had no excuse even if Chae-young was mad. However, it seemed Chae-young didn't realize those emotions were nervousness and fear. If the level of her soul was any higher, she would have felt threatened upon realizing Yeon-woo was a being who shouldn't be resisted. Right now, she just didn't feel the danger because there was too wide a gap between their strength. Just like how a blind man didn't know an elephant's leg even when touching it, Min Chae-young didn't take the danger for what it was. However, apparently, the star fragment had realized this. The fragment and her soul were somewhat synchronized, so those feelings had been conveyed to Chae-young. Min Chae-young told Sesha it was all right, but her head was still muddled. She was now able to start understanding what this star fragment was. As the reason why I exist all because of this. Min Chae-young rubbed the part of the chest where she could feel the throbbing. When she felt her heart beating earlier, that had been the star fragment. The thumping of her heart was just the fragment vibrating. Even now, because Yeon-woo was nearby, the star fragment was vibrating. When Min Chae-young closed her eyes and focused, she could feel the shape of the fragment, as well as the magic power slowly circling it. There's so much. Min Chae-young was only a beginner, but as a result of a few magic lessons, she grasped how incredible the energy of this star fragment was. If she could digest it all, how powerful would she be? Could she really be one of those stars sparkling in the sky? After she digested it and more, could she reach the level of Sesha's grandparents, Kronos and Rhea? And if so, can I meet him? At some point, after learning magic, Min Chae-young began to want to find the boy who had been her warm spring breeze. She was fine with seeing him from afar, and it was okay even if he had forgotten her. She just wanted to see him once. In the beginning, it was just a faint desire, but now she had hope that it might really be possible. Kronos and Rhea, who offered to help, weren't able to find him easily, however. But Min Chae-young thought that made sense. He was definitely different from other children. At the time, Min Chae-young had been exhausted mentally and wasn't able to spare him much thought. In retrospect, he had definitely been a mysterious child. He was different from the other kids their age as if he was living in a different world by himself. Even when Chae-young looked at it from a magical point of view, he was different from normal people. It was before dungeons and gates opened, but it was possible he was like Kronos and Rhea, a holy being who had been hiding his identity on Earth. Or perhaps he was closely related to one. Whatever he was, it was most important to Chae-young that she had hope. If she had some ability, even if Kronos and Rhea couldn't help, she could search for him around the universe. Of course, I'll have to learn how to control this fragment first. Min Chae-young clenched her fists. She decided to think optimistically. All her life, she had been on the receiving end of wrong treatment and lived passively. Even now, she was being chased by those stars or whatever, but she wanted to stand tall over it all. Unlike in the past, she now had Sesha, as well as Kronos and Rhea. She had these grateful family-like people by her side so she could do it. Her flow of thought turned to Yeon-woo again. The mere thought of him instilled fear in her. But wouldn't someone like him know how to control this fragment? But you know, Min Chae-young was broken out of her reverse as Sesha spoke up. Open corner bracket you said there's a guy you like. Open corner bracket TT that's. Min Chae-young's face flushed. Is that the guy you talked about before? That son. Open corner bracket don't say it, I can't hear you. Min Chae-young covered her ears and paced around the room shouting in an attempt to block out Sesha. Sesha burst out laughing at her friend's cute reaction. At the same time, a part of her began to wonder. Yeon-woo and Adora, Jung-woo and Ananta, Kronos and Rhea. And even Min Chae-young and the boy named Sun Jae-won. What was love, and how did it feel? Sesha wanted to know. Alpharon Vivasvat Sun Jae-won no, the shell of all those beings was currently in the middle of the long dream tightly bound in emptiness that Yeon-woo had put him in. He was dreaming of the old days, the days when his mom and dad loved him dearly, the days he stressed them out because he didn't know those were the happy days, a time before stepping foot into this damned world filled with pain and suffering. Jae-won. In the dream, he was listening to the voice of a friend who only smiled at him. The voice of the one he realized was his first love too late. Hi, it was a short greeting he'd wanted to hear but was never able to. The word was deeply imprinted in his heart. Side Story Chapter 45 The Third Zone 5. Tigris confessed to everything he knew about the stars. If he didn't, Yi and Wu would most definitely do something to him. Tigris had swallowed the southern arrow and a piece of the sundial, but he knew he could never reach Yi and Wu's level. Pride. What use was that if he was dead? Tigris wanted to live, and that was the only thought in his mind. Thus, he spilled every detail he knew to the point of telling his entire life story. At that point, Yi and Wu silently raised a hand. Tigris quickly shut his mouth and simply moved his eyes around. Thump, thump. Depending on what Yi and Wu did now, the fate of his life would be determined. Sweat dripped down his face. Unaware of Tigris' anxiousness, Kronos and Rhea were deep in thought. Then, Kronos asked, so the stars or whatever are working together to gather the fragments, is that it? Yi and Wu nodded at Kronos' words. For now, and you were trying to catch them all, but they kept disappearing into the unreal world so you couldn't. Yes, we just finished taking care of that day and night business, but something else is amiss now. Kronos shook his head in exhaustion. But after hearing everything, he was sure of one thing. Yi and Wu was going to get busier now. Kronos' eyes darkened. So you're planning on going to this place called the Unreal World? Yi and Wu nodded and glanced next to him. I have a guide dog to take me there too. Quote exclamation mark quote. Tigris realized what Yi and Wu was talking about and lifted his head with a bright expression. He was relieved he was going to stay alive, but he also paled at the thought of having to be pulled around like this. Yi and Wu tied Tigris as he had with Alphron and stuck him in emptiness. Tigris struggled and resisted, but Yi and Wu paid him no mind. That's. Kronos looked into the emptiness without much thought and widened his eyes at what he saw. A face he never thought he'd see again was halfway buried in darkness. It was Alphron, Vivasvat. Kronos, who had been confined in the tower because of Alphron, couldn't help but be surprised. However, he soon nodded in understanding. Since Yi and Wu visited the Martial King and rewound the small wheel, he must have naturally met with Alphron. Moreover, Kronos and Yi and Wu had already defeated Alphron once, so Kronos' resentment of Alphron wasn't as great as it once was. But of course, that didn't mean he had any reason to pity him either. Why did you stick him in there? I had no reason to eliminate it. That's true, and Alphron is also the original of a shadow from the 21st floor like the Martial King. But he's managed to maintain his identity without becoming lost once, so I wanted to take a closer look. Alphron was definitely too powerful to be a mere shadow. Still, Kronos couldn't help but feel something was off. Rhea looked at Alphron with concern. She knew all the bad things he'd done to their family, but her heart went out to him after seeing him tied up. A part of her also wondered what the relative of someone so great as the heavenly demon could wish for to make a decision as he had. Rhea tilted her head while examining Alphron's face. The emptiness swallowed the light that always surrounded Alphron, so his real body was exposed. He looked young, almost babyish. Even younger than Yi and Wu. Yi and Wu and Kronos turned to Rhea. What is it, mother? Why, is something wrong? That child. Wait, Rhea dug through the documents on a table. Yi and Wu looked at his mother questioningly, but Kronos' eyes also widened in realization. Kronos said, the guy. Yeah, I thought they looked similar. Rhea subtly nodded. In Ray's hand was a document of Sun Jae-won's profile. At the top right was a photo that closely resembled Alphron. Arg. Just then, Alphron woke up and groaned, slowly lifting his head. His blinking eyes were still unfocused, but that was enough. His face was exactly the same as the picture. The last name, Sun Wukong, who was one of the heavenly demon's more well-known faces, and got along well with the heavenly demon, was also a Sun, wasn't he? Kronos could be wrong, but his instincts were telling him he was right. A being of his level had instincts that shouldn't be disregarded. Suddenly, the face of the band wheel's vocal, which had always been foggy in his memory, cleared up to show Sun Ji-ho's face. It was the heavenly demon grinning widely. Hua, Kronos paled. Just like how Tigris sweated in fear from Yi and Wu, Kronos was in the same position in front of the heavenly demon. The heavenly demon might be seeing this. It wasn't strange at all for the heavenly demon to make a fuss for not recognizing him. Kronos quickly racked his brain thinking of what he could do. His gaze landed on Alphron, who had regained his consciousness. What do you plan on doing with me? Alphron's deep eyes looked at Yi and Wu. His voice was low and emotionless as if he had given up on resisting and was awaiting his sentence. However, Yi and Wu knew different. The guy was searching for the next opportunity to leave this place. That's what I would do. He and Alphorone were different but also similar in more ways than one. Instead of answering Alphoron's question, he turned to Rhea. Mother, why were you searching for him? Yian-Wu had absorbed Alphorone in the tower, so he had some of his memories. He knew Alphorone was also from Earth like the heavenly demon, and his real name was Sun Jae-won. He's the child Chai Young was looking for. That girl earlier. Yian-Wu felt something click and sent a message to Sesha upstairs. Open hollow corner bracket, can you bring that girl named Min Chai Young down here? Open hollow corner bracket, Chai Young. Is something the matter? Open hollow corner bracket, not exactly. Open hollow corner bracket, close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket, what is it? Did something happen? Yian-Wu felt Sesha was hesitant to bring Min Chai Young down. Open hollow corner bracket, well, the thing is, I think Chai Young is uncomfortable around you. Open hollow corner bracket, I see. It must be because her senses are delicate, so don't worry about that. I have something to show her. Open hollow corner bracket, got it. Okay. There was a noise upstairs and Sesha soon brought Min Chai Young to the first floor. Open corner bracket, huh? Are you? The slightly scared Min Chai Young and the exhausted Alphorone met eyes. The two stood there shocked and speechless. Yian-Wu didn't know exactly how the laws of causality worked, even though he had become the Black King, who was the universe itself. They were laws that his brother managed, so he didn't know exactly the mechanisms behind them. No, well technically, Yian-Wu did know. But he didn't know if the results known as coincidence or fate were natural, or if they were a consequence of someone's joke. If not that, maybe they really were events that happened with less than 1,000% chance. However, Yian-Wu was certain that Cha Jung-Woo probably didn't know either. Alphorone, Sun Jae-won and Min Chai Young's reunion, can this really simply be coincidence or fate? After recalling a part of Sun Jae-won's memory that he'd buried in a deep part of his mind, Yian-Wu belatedly remembered Min Chai Young was a very precious part of it. Maybe this was the butterfly effect. The godly being, Sun Jae-won, subconsciously longed for Min Chai Young, and that had influenced the laws of causality for the star fragment to reach her. Or maybe it was the other way around. Min Chai Young obtained the star fragment, and she had wished to see Sun Jae-won, so they had ended up meeting like this through Yian-Wu, who rewound the wheel. Whatever it was, the two were blind to others' gazes and just stared at each other. Yian-Wu let Alphorone free from all the binds he was in. He had already retrieved most of Alphoron's power anyway, and he had a strong feeling Alphorone wouldn't create a scene in front of Min Chai Young. Even if he was wrong, he was confident he could easily take care of it. Yian-Wu, Kronos, Rhea, and Sesha left so the two could have some time to themselves. Huh, that inhumane bastard in love. Kronos snorted in disbelief. The Alphorone he remembered was a sage who'd lost all humanity and only sought justice. Sage is just a nice way of putting it. He was practically a robot of justice. It was strange seeing such a guy showing a humane side. But with this, Kronos could no longer resent Alphorone. The way Alphorone had been reunited with his old lover, and the longing for his lover that death couldn't rid him of, reminded Kronos of how he'd been born again hundreds and thousands of times for the chance to see Rhea just once more, as well as how Rhea decided to leave the heavenly world for him. Rhea looked adoringly at Min Chai Young, who was crying tears of happiness, and nodded. I will rewind the wheel now. Yian-Wu gripped the air. Time was of no matter to them, so they could arrange a meeting for the wedding once both sides were prepared. Clank. Will you rewind the wheel? Creak. The wheel began to spin. But can I really go? Sesha carefully asked. Her departure was decided rather suddenly. Rhea smiled warmly and stroked her granddaughter's head. You said you wanted to see Adora Unnie, didn't you? She's not Unnie anymore, she's my aunt. Hee. Yes, I really do want to see her again. As Sesha had told Min Chai Young, Adora had stayed with Sesha as a good memory. She was pretty, kind, and confident. If someone asked Sesha who she wanted to be like, she would immediately state Adora as her role model. While the scenery around them rapidly changed, Yian-Wu suddenly remembered something and spoke up. If you happen to see something strange upon arriving at the village, don't be too surprised. Something strange? It takes a lot to surprise me. You know, you tend to underestimate the lives your mom and dad have lived. Kronos had experienced all kinds of things during his long life. He spoke with assurance, but Yian-Wu still looked unsure. Then, when the wheel was done spinning, Kronos understood why Yian-Wu had been concerned. What's that? Rhea and Sesha also widened their eyes in surprise. In the middle of the one-horned tribe's village was a statue of Yianwu and Adora. Quote quote, quote quote, quote quote. The three were speechless for a while. Side story chapter 46 Marriage 1. Haha, goodness gracious. This side of you might be genetic too. Rhea was the first to break the silence. She covered her mouth as she chuckled, looking at Kronos for some reason. Kronos turned away as if trying to avoid his wife's gaze. Yianwu became suspicious, speaking up, did you? No, it's nothing. I didn't say anything yet. You were about to. I wasn't. You punk. As Kronos frowned, Yianwu slowly crept behind Rhea. Mother. Ha ha ha. Actually, when your father was younger. Ah, no, don't tell him. He had such a big head. So he. Ah, can't hear you. Kronos jumped around, trying to stop Rhea, but of course it didn't work. Another rumor soon spread throughout the village. Did you hear? What? Cain brought his parents. Oh, ooh, and it's not just one or two people who have seen this. There was a rumor that Yianwu had appeared in the middle of the village with his parents and niece in tow and went to where the martial king resided. It was definitely not just a silly rumor to gloss over. The current hottest button issue in the village was of Yianwu and Adora's marriage. No tribe member was going to miss out on this big news. Let's go see, let's watch, let's go. And like that, the martial king's residence was filled with countless members of the tribe. Each of them had mischievous smiles, and they didn't hide the reason why they were there. You know, I heard this is the first time our princess is meeting her in-laws. Oh, really? Yeah, Cain's family had some stuff going on. It's because of that. Her father-in-law is Kronos, and her mother-in-law is Rhea. Then it's understandable. Regardless, it's going to be amusing. Right, he. Would the aloof Adora be shy in front of the in-laws she was meeting for the first time, or would she be the same? It was a very amusing subject for the tribe. And that wasn't all of it. But I'm also curious about that. Ooh, is there another topic to be interested in? You know, Cain always acts up and talks back to our king, but he'd do anything the princess wants. Yeah, he had trouble bringing up the wedding too. How do you think the first meeting between the families is gonna go? A nervous Cain, I can't imagine. That's why we should go and watch. The members of the tribe all agreed. Bustle, clamor. The martial king's residence was chaotic because of the people who were trying to peek inside. A few of them even attempted to use their martial arts to sneak inside, but it was impossible to enter because of a barrier. Wow, he made a barrier like this just by projecting his personal defense art. He really is a monster. The tribe members were astonished at how strong the barrier was, but they still attempted to find its weakness. The one-horned tribe consisted of people who were united with their challenging and adventurous spirits anyway. Having a barrier like this would only encourage their competitive side. Our martial arts to sneak inside won't work. What should we do? Should we just break it down? How? That inhumane monster even transcended this time. Should I use sword energy? Yeah, it won't hurt to try. We're going to die from frustration at this rate. There were a few tribe members attempting to break the barrier with brute strength. Pow, pow, pow. Do. But of course, when they did, opposing energy was created and they were flung back with an impact that was multiple times stronger than what they had inflicted. OWWWW. Keg. As expected, this isn't easy. Still, nothing can stop me. Like always, I'll find a way to climb over this obstacle. Hiya. The tribe members spoke like they were mercenaries trying to invade a demon king's castle, and crashed against the barrier. A few of them spoke victoriously of how they managed to last a few seconds longer or leave a minuscule crack. The competition among the tribe members pulled them to the martial king's residence like a magnet, and the barrier was like a great mountain that had to be overcome. They're all idiots. The head elder shook his head in disbelief as he watched. Old and young people alike were wasting time on such a futile act. Was this tribe really going to be okay? The head elder genuinely was concerned about the tribe's future. But of course, the greater concern was inside of the barrier. Thump, boom. No matter how many layers were combined to create the barrier, it was impossible to completely eliminate the minor noise without using magic. Faint shaking could be easily felt by beings like the martial king and Kronos. Moreover, the tribe members seemed to be making a new attempt because the quaking was becoming worse. It appeared they'd found some method. The martial king was incredulous of his own tribe. Ha, they're quite loud, aren't they? I hope you understand. They tend to be really noisy. Kronos lightly waved his hand from where he was sitting opposite the chuckling martial king. It's better they're active than staying silent. And I'm used to atmospheres like this. Kronos took a liking to the one-horned tribe. It reminded him of Olympus from when he was younger. Back during Uranus's rule, when it hadn't been that long since all the forces were united, there was never a silent day. There was never a civil war thanks to Uranus, but small conflicts often occurred. Uranus used this in a positive way to raise Olympus' morale. The reasons might be different, but Olympus and the one-horned tribe were similar. Hot-blooded tribe members, a competitive atmosphere, and a free-spirited society. Kronos liked it all. If Rhea and Yianwu weren't here, he'd forget about acting polite and go hang out with the tribe members. This guy seems to have become different too. Kronos felt the competitive spirit sleeping inside of him slowly waking up. He still remembered the man who didn't even blink in front of the armies of Asgard and defeated them all with a laugh. As a fellow martial artist, he naturally felt respect. Of course, the martial king here was more a vestige than the real martial king, but he still seemed like the martial king to Kronos' eyes. It's a celebratory day. Would you like a drink? Ooh, do you have nice liquor? There's some I've been saving for days like this. He. Is that, you have a good eye, in-law. Yes, it's monkey wine. Huh, such a precious drink. Pop. The moment the bottle was opened, a thick fruity scent was released. The martial king smiled confidently, and Kronos swallowed. The two began to engage in animated conversation, and Rhea and the psychic medium sat politely and spoke of their children's marriage. When should the wedding be? An auspicious day would be suitable. What days are auspicious for the one-horned tribe? They spoke of setting the date, the newlywed house, the dowry and jewelry. Yianwu and Adora had a hard time keeping up. Since it was both their first time getting married, they had to leave everything to their parents. To be exact, their mothers would be taking care of everything. In fact, Yianwu and Adora just wanted to have a simple wedding, but since this was also a union of Olympus and the one-horned tribe, they couldn't gloss over this large event. You raised such a beautiful daughter. How is she so pretty and kind? When the conversation was about wrapped up, Rhea looked at Adora with warm eyes. She looked like she adored her future daughter-in-law. Rhea had already given her silently permission to marry the moment she saw Adora politely greet them immediately after they entered the village. Of course, since Yianwu said he liked Adora, Rhea didn't have any intention of suggesting against it even if she wasn't satisfied. However, it was clear how kind Adora was and how well she was raised from her attitude to the adults, so Rhea was able to continue the wedding planning more delightedly than expected. But every time Rhea looked at Adora, Adora looked down. Thump, thump, thump. The previous day, Adora had been determined to be warm and polite to her in-laws, no matter how nervous she was. It had been going fine when she met them, but the moment they sat down, everything in her head flew away. What should I do? Adora thanked them, but it was difficult to say anything else. She questioned whether or not what she said might be offensive to her in-laws, and she repeated everything in her head multiple times so as not to say anything that tarnished the reputation of her parents. She was tense from nervousness. But Oriboni doesn't seem affected in the slightest. Yianwu was sitting with a composed face. He didn't jump into the conversation so as not to get in the way of the parents' discussions, but every time the atmosphere became awkward, he brought up an appropriate conversation starter to make the talks flow naturally. He's amazing. He didn't appear nervous at all. Before today, he had seemed anxious, but did he feel more at ease now that they were doing the real thing? Adora nodded, thinking of how like Yianwu that was. Huh. But then Adora saw how Yianwu's hand was trembling slightly. The water in his cup was faintly rippling. He just seemed normal on the outside, but he was actually more nervous than her. Adora grinned, thinking him adorable for trying not to show his anxiety. Thanks to him, Adora felt less nervous, and she joined their conversation more comfortably. Yianwu's hand continued to tremble until the end. Side Story Chapter 47 Marriage 2. After the meeting was finished, Yianwu laid back in his chair with a pale face. Ha! Yianwu normally had a cold-blooded personality and didn't even blink at most things, but no one would have guessed it from how he was acting right now. Neither of my cold-blooded or intense light traits worked, Yianwu sighed, thinking of how he must have appeared during the meeting. He should have stepped up to help the awkward atmosphere flow naturally, but Adora had taken care of everything. He hoped she wouldn't be disappointed in him after this. Just then, a hand touched his shoulder, and Yianwu turned around. Adora was grinning at him, and she said, "Good job, Oriboni." I didn't do anything. What do you mean? If you weren't here, it really would have been awkward. Good job. Yi and Woo almost teared up from the way Adora was trying to cheer him up. It continually occurred to him that he'd made a brilliant choice with this marriage. Oh, my, Yi and Woo couldn't stop himself from pulling Adora to him because of how beautiful she was. Adora slapped Yi and Woo in surprise, but she didn't try to escape his embrace. Rather, she patted Yi and Woo's back with his slender hand. I wonder when our Oroboni became such a softie. You turn into more of a baby every day. Pat, pat, at her soothing warm touch, Yi and Woo's tense muscles began to relax. He really does need me, Adora thought to herself. At the same time, she found it adorable that Yi and Woo only showed this side of him to her, and she smiled widely. Just then, Adora discovered a wide smile like her own was looking at them. No, it was more of a devilish grin than a smile. Snicker. Adora had no idea when he had appeared, but the Martial King was watching them with an amused gaze from where he was leaning on the doorframe with his arms crossed. Adora felt chills run down her spine from how mischievous he looked. What is it? Feeling Adora's body stiffen, Yi and Woo raised his head from Adora's chest. The Martial King was using his powers to the best of his ability to hide, and Yi and Woo hadn't been able to feel him because of how taxed his nervousness. The Martial King silently mouthed words at a flushed Adora. Oroboni, heart he, heart somehow, he even managed to mouth a heart. Adora's face turned redder. I'm going to kill him. Now, her face was on the verge of exploding. Tremble, tremble, Adora. Yi and Woo began to turn his head at the strange feeling. You idiot, you're at it again. Wife, why don't we talk after you let go of this? Ah. The psychic medium suddenly appeared and pulled the Martial King into the hallway by his ear. Yi and Woo realized his teacher had seen the position he and Adora were in, and his face slightly turned red. We're gonna be teased anyway. But then he changed his mind. Let's stay like this a while longer. Okay. Yi and Woo and Adora held each other tight again. Extra, read all about it. It's a wedding. Cain and Princess Adora are getting married. Kya. You know, back in my days, I sparred against Cain. The wedding date was set. As the news spread, the village turned into chaos. It was pandemonium before becoming a shitshow. The tribe members began to run around busily at the good news. They spread the news to their acquaintances or clans they were close with. To the clans involved, they sent extravagantly decorated invitations. The invitation was filled with flowery words and messages, but their contents could be reduced to two main points. Don't come empty-handed. Bring good presents. There was a subtle threat that the guests should congratulate the couple properly or else. It was understandable, however, because of the importance of this marriage. The groom, Cain, was the Martial King's disciple and the current strongest being in the tower. The bride, Adora, was the child of the Martial King and the psychic medium, and she was designated to become the next psychic medium. In the village, the psychic medium's status was equal to the Martial King's. At times, she was even more important. This event was no simple event indeed. But of course, there were many people who were not happy with their marriage, especially the groups that were on bad terms with Arthea. It's clear they're mocking us. Once upon a time, the devil army sought the heavenly demon's attention and love, but they had grown frustrated with him and changed the god they served. The head bishop, who was catching his breath in the magic region, smiled wryly at the invitation his subordinate brought him. The court dress he used to wear was gone, and he was wearing frayed clothes that a farmer might wear. It was hard to think he was the head bishop of the devil army. Moreover, the aura and fierceness he used to exude were missing as well. His pupils that were dark with demonic energy and chaotic energy had turned clear like glass. A magic region was a world that was darker than an abyss and nastier than hell. However, the magic region Huel and the followers of the devil army arrived at was nothing like any other magic region. The sun rose in the morning, and it set at night. The soil was very arable, crops grew as they were planted, and the flowing river was so clear that fish swam in them. There weren't any societies or civilizations, so there was no need for them to fight or compete with others. Even if one wanted to do something evil, their resolve would be weakened after feeling the warm sun and breezy wind. The devil army repeatedly lived through battles and chaos, but everything they could ever wish for was here. A few of the bishops said this place shouldn't be called a magic region, but heaven, or paradise. However, the owner of this region, the Bull Demon King, denied it. He always said the same thing. This land, this world. It's a place where those abandoned by the world have come to with their last hopes. What better word to describe this place than magic region? It was a magic region because those abandoned by the world had come here. Those living in this magic region called where they currently live the Northern Magic Temple. Huel appreciated these words very much. He felt what the Bull Demon King said aptly described him and the followers. Perhaps they were the most suited for this magic region, since magic and devil could mean the same thing. They were able to find the peace they had wanted in this place. Of course, they had found peace, but that didn't mean they were cut off from news from the outside. Peace was also a pause between war and chaos. To continue to have peace, one needed to be stronger than all others, and they had to be sensitive to everything that was happening in the world. Huel was aware of this. He didn't have to look far to find an example. The one-horned tribe declared themselves separated from the world, but they were able to keep their high status due to their strength. So most of the bishops acted as spies outside of the magic region, and they delivered necessary news. The problem was that this time, the one-horned tribe had delivered the news themselves. They personally gave the invitation to our best hidden spy. Huel flipped the invitation in his hand and smiled bitterly. The devil army had evaded persecution and hid in the deepest crevices of the world, but the one-horned tribe approached them easily. He knew they had the psychic medium, but he wondered just how far their eyes did reach. Second Bishop, what do you think of this? Huel wanted to know what Kindred thought. Considering how much the devil army had suffered because of Yi and Wu, this invitation should never have come here. However, there was no one in the devil army who had the worst relationship with Yi and Wu than Kindred. Huel guessed that Kindred probably was displeased. Or he might postpone his response and tell him to ask the Bull Demon King or any of the other demon kings. I think we should go. Kindred's answer was unexpected. Huel raised an eyebrow, asking, why? I believe we should separate work and personal matters. What's work, and what's personal? Work is how strong the one-horned tribe is, and the personal matter is our bad relationship with Yi and Wu. You're saying there's no need to distance ourselves from strong people. I am aware there are many rumors and assumptions about our clan in the tower. But if we appear at the event, we can show them the devil army is still powerful. No, we can show them we're even better off. Good thinking. It was nothing. No, I was having very mixed feelings, but you helped me to organize my thoughts. Huel folded his hands behind his back and lifted his head. After he arrived at the magic region, he had more opportunities to look up at the sky like this. When he watched the moving white clouds, he thought of many things. This was also a blessing of such a lax lifestyle. We still have a long way to go to speak about returning to our glory days. But taking a break isn't bad. Huel muttered to himself and turned around. I must meet with the Bull Demon King. Tell him I wish to make an appointment. Yes, sir. Huel's eyes flashed as he watched Kindred disappear with a swish. The clouds above continued to move like any other day. Side Story Chapter 48 Marriage 3. While the magic region with the devil army was becoming clamorous, there was a group that had escaped becoming destroyed when the wheel was rewound, Asgard. They were living on the land that only the chosen ones could live on. The path to descent is blocked. Asgard's king, Odin, slowly opened an eye. Unlike the other Sky Fathers, who represented completion, dignity, authority, and sanctity, Odin had a great fault. He only saw through one eye and used a blindfold. Other Sky Fathers considered beings with faults to be stupid or weak. Because beings like them were made from spiritual bodies and not physical bodies, they could easily restore any fault as long as they had enough holy power. The fact that Odin still only had one eye could mean he wasn't powerful enough to overcome his heavenly form. It was only natural he was judged to be unworthy of being a Sky Father. However, nobody thought that of him. They all knew he had lost an eye to gain something greater, the power of foresight. He had the ability to see the future. Odin was the reason the small society that was always in conflict over battles between the Aesir and Vanir was able to grow this much. And right now, Odin was looking at a new scene. It was the destruction of Asgard. Cow, cow. The two crows on Odin's shoulders, Hugin and Munin, screeched. It's the end, the end. We're all going to die. We'll die if we stay here. We'll die even if we attempt to leave. The heavenly world was currently locked shut after Yi and Wu interfered with the system. Due to this, Asgard and many other societies were busy attempting to get through the mysterious block. However, as things didn't go their way, they sought Odin to find a way. Odin activated his foresight for 5 days without any rest, not stopping to sleep or eat, but he was only able to reach a conclusion after using most of his holy power. As someone who had spent most of his life to grow Asgard to their position today, Odin was disbelieving of what he saw. Was it the martial king? The end of the wheel I saw before was a result of that mortal. However, it's different this time. It's him but not him. Odin was considered one of the wisest of all the Sky Fathers, but at this moment, he could not come to a decision. What should we do? We'll die this way or that way. Then we need to search for the one who'll make us die. But we don't know who that is. Who is it? Don't know. Who's most likely? Niflheim. No, they're weak. Then the one who closed up the heavenly world. It's him. We can kill him. And the guy we saw before. Let's kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Odin stroked his chin. Even if they seemed like they were blabbering, Hugin and Munen's advice opened Odin up to new thought processes, and that was currently the case now. Getting rid of all the creatures in the way. This was the most attractive choice. Even if Odin didn't kill the being, if only he could somehow manage to make some deal. Odin gazed below with his eye. Whoosh. Suddenly, the air rippled around the throne he was sitting in to create a new scene. An image of the one-horned tribe where the martial king and Yenwu appeared. Watching the bustling village preparing for the wedding, Odin narrowed his eye. While Asgard made preparations for new movements, there was another godly society that was busy, Olympus. It was a society where Yenwu was the current supreme god, and beings of this society still longed for Kronos and Rhea, who were the rulers during Olympus' golden age. Lord Yenwu really appeared? Hermes smiled strangely at Athena's frantic question. Yup. Then why didn't he come here and is still down there? Athena looked very confused. After Yenwu appeared, the heavenly world was shut, and the channel to him was still disconnected. As Yenwu's chief apostle, Athena couldn't help but be flustered. She didn't know that Yenwu had come from the far future after rewinding the wheel, so she was even more confused. Hermes amusedly looked at his sister who was so attached to their young uncle. Do you know what's more entertaining? There's something else. Lord Kronos is here too. Well, that's because he's always next to Yenwu. In his complete form. What? Athena's eyes widened as big as saucers. And Lady Rhea is there too. That means, both of them have resurrected completely. Quote! And both of them are currently in the one-horned tribe's village. What do you think this means? Athena was silent for a moment. The one-horned tribe was not only where Yenwu's teacher, the martial king was, but it was where his one and only lover lived. But he had taken his parents there. What else could that mean? Athena jumped up from her seat. Hermes barely contained his laughter. Athena's face was more serious than ever. She probably had this expression when she'd been standing against Persephone. Her eyes were blazing red. Of course, Hermes didn't mention it. It's more fun to watch from the sidelines. Why should I? Hermes was the type who slowly savored a delicious meal. Hermes. What is Olympus? Hermes decided to give Athena the response she wanted. Of course, it's Lord Yenwu's umbrella and Lord Kronos and Lady Rhea's bedrock. Right, and the entire one-horned tribe village is moving right now. Then do you think it makes sense for Olympus to do nothing? Of course not. Yes, exactly. Athena clenched her fists. She didn't seem to want to lose, whether it was against the whole group or a particular someone. Hurry up and get ready. We're heading down there too. Okay, sister. Hermes. Laughter strangely got on Athena's nerves, but she didn't pay any mind to it. Right now, the only thought on her mind was to descend to the lower world. In a thick darkness, hidden figures spoke mysteriously. Open hollow corner bracket death. Open hollow corner bracket the death that disappeared for a short while has returned even greater than what it used to be. Open hollow corner bracket it's not just great. Open hollow corner bracket it's primitive close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket it's original close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket it's a dim-witted darkness that's existed before death. This was the conscious territory shared by gods and demons of death who were known to be heretics. Open hollow corner bracket it's certain he has finished everything in a timeline we haven't reached and has returned here to save us. The beings in this place already had a guess as to what Yenwu had become since the moment he appeared in this timeline. It was because all their powers originated from him. Open hollow corner bracket so close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket the king close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket the one who has become the true king. Yenwu was no longer the executioner or apostle of the Black King. He was the Black King himself. Open hollow corner bracket let us go hail him. Open hollow corner bracket we shall go greet him. And so the subjects decided to go and see the king who didn't seek them out. Open hollow corner bracket we are the residue he has left behind in the universe. It's only obvious we do. With those words, darkness shut. Clunk. Many beings of the heavenly world were busy because of Yi and Wu, but there were also those who were silently watching. In the underground of the tower, also called the tower's back end, there was the unreal world. Someone opened their eyes in the world that existed and did not exist. Although everything was faint and had no shape, the creature seemed to have the dignity and grace of a lion Leo. There was a hierarchy among the beings who called themselves stars. To be a star named after the lion, which was the king of beasts, meant he was one of the strongest stars there were. He was one of the two kings who ruled over the stars. Open hollow corner bracket. What an amusing turn of events. Leo spent most of his time asleep like most real lions. He was asleep 3/4 of the day, and he was only awake for the other fourth. Some might think he was lazy, but the ferocity the lion constellation showed when he was awake made the other stars tremble in fear, so no one argued with him about it. Rather, they thought the fact that he slept deeply and for so long meant he was just that strong. However, Leo's sleeping times had become shorter and shorter recently. It was from when he began to observe a certain being. Open hollow corner bracket. Dim-witted darkness. I see you are trying to live your life in that tiny corner of the universe. The being was someone who all stars, all those born in this world, and all living creatures had to know. The being was the universe itself. He was the Black King, who fell into an eternal sleep, and his ego, Cha Yi and Wu. Open hollow corner bracket. Marriage. Leo scoffed. Why does such an almighty being choose to limit himself to laws of causality? Does he want to play house in this dream? Leo lived by the theory that those who were powerful must be worthy of holding such power. The actions Yi and Wu was showing these days were all hard to understand from Leo's perspective. He seemed ridiculous trying to play house in the dream. If Leo was Yi and Wu and had that much power, he never would have used it like that. There was so much Yi and Wu could do with that power, but why was he stopping there? Leo wondered how someone who wasn't ambitious in the slightest was able to get to such a position. Open hollow corner bracket. I want to know he's thinking. However, Leo's questions would never be answered just by observing Yi and Wu, so Leo decided to act on it. He would meet Yi and Wu for himself. Of course, it wasn't the time for stars to fight against the Black King and the Heavenly Demon yet, so he knew it was dangerous, but he thought it would be alright if he approached in good nature. Even if Yi and Wu was hostile, there was no need for Leo to avoid him either. Open hollow corner bracket. Let's go see, shall we? Leo slowly stood up. It was his first trip in a long while. And like that, many beings throughout the universe were preparing to attend Yi and Wu's wedding. Side story. Chapter 49. Marriage. 4. So this is that star or whatever, huh? The Martial King scanned the being in front of him with his chin resting on his palm. Tremble, tremble. Tigress shook every time the Martial King's eyes swept over him. Be Black King, this crazy bastard. He had to bring me in front of the first star of all beings. As an energy source that shone most brilliantly across all world lines and had near unlimited potential, star fragments were the greatest nourishment for food. So the stars couldn't help but be curious who the original being who left behind all these fragments were. Many stars called this original the first star, and they began to investigate it. Then, when they came to a conclusion, they discovered unbelievable accomplishments. A descendant of Shao Hao Jintian, the strongest being in the tower, the king of the one-horned tribe, the destroyer of Asgard, and the Black King's teacher. Each achievement was incredible, but this being possessed all of them. Especially the fact that he was the Black King's teacher was the most shocking. The Black King in particular, the main ego, Yi and Wu, and the Heavenly Demon, were the two beings the stars avoided the most. The stars had been evading the two because they thought they were ready to stand against them yet, but if the first star was the Black King's teacher, they were destined to be involved somehow. On one hand, they were fearful of how powerful the first star must be to have created such a monster. And now Tigress was facing a very powerful being, the first star. He was destroyed. I heard he was destroyed with the end of Asgard after he became emperor. Just how? The reason the star fragments were able to have such unlimited energy was because of the heights of power the Martial King had reached when he was alive. He was an emperor. It was a level the stars found unimaginable, which was why the fragments were so incredible, but it appeared Yi and Wu had restored the emperor. Was that possible? Even if the Black King was the universe itself and had omnipotent power, although Tigress was doubtful of how that was possible, he couldn't refute it because there was a being who was proving the very fact in front of him. Of course, the Martial King wasn't on the emperor level. He was a star who had just realized what he was. His starlight didn't even reach as far as Tigress's, but that made Tigress even more scared of him. The martial king, whose starlight wasn't even that bright, looked as if he could easily swallow Tigress. Tigress felt like a criminal standing in front of a guillotine. However, he could not even dream of running away. Half of his body was trapped in Yin Wu's shadow, and the divine iron was tightly bound around his limbs. The martial king seemed blind to Tigress' feelings as he examined Tigress for a while. Disciple. Yes, Season Nim, this thing really came from me. To be exact, this guy swallowed something that came from you. Tomato, and he destroyed an entire world. Yes, but why does he seem so dumb? Because he is. Although they were openly mocking him, Tigress couldn't say anything. No, to be exact, he didn't even hear it. No, that's why he seems even dumber. In what way? Well, if he took something that was from me, even if it was my shit, this guy should look a lot more brave. Muesli, handsome, but this is, the martial king trailed off and scanned Tigress again. This is just an idiot. I see, right, you agree with my disciple, don't you? No, it just occurred to me that there's a very great disparity between how you really are and what you think of yourself. What, you punk, do you wanna get beat up by this teacher of yours with a great disparity before your wedding? Stop with the nonsense, you're going to have to walk the bride in with makeup on your face to cover your bruises. Look at you, you're blatantly being impudent now. They say a teacher is like a father. On top of that, I'm your father-in-law now, so I'm really like another father to you. Well, children always take after their parents. You punk, do you really wanna go at it? Fine, let's do it. The martial king lifted his sleeves and Yin Wu got into stance. They growled at each other. Tigress, who was stuck in between them, continued to tremble. When he turned to the left, Yin Wu was there, and the martial king was to his left. This was definitely what it meant to be caught in a crossfire. Just kill me instead. The star who wanted to survive more than anything else just wanted to become free now. Tigress, wish was accomplished soon enough. Open hollow corner bracket. How old are you to be fighting with your disciple? Grow up. The weary psychic medium, who was waiting for Yin Wu and the martial king to come out, disrupted them. The martial king flinched. No, the thing is this punk keeps on getting on my nerves. Open hollow corner bracket. Now Cain is your son-in-law, not just your disciple. He is the husband of your daughter. We're family now. Until when are you going to call him, punk? Close hollow corner bracket. But he was my disciple first. Open hollow corner bracket. He was Adora's acquaintance first. Also, stop talking back. Sorry. The martial king attempted to counter her, but he ended up being scolded by the psychic medium and had to surrender. Open hollow corner bracket. Just hurry up and finish. Okay. Open hollow corner bracket. Are you okay, son-in-law? You're not hurt anywhere. Sob. My heart was very hurt. It obviously sounded like Yin Wu was reading from a book, but it didn't appear that way to his mother-in-law. And they said taking care of the son-in-law was the mother-in-law's duty. Open hollow corner bracket. Oh dear. Why would someone bother such a kind child like you? I'm all right. I should listen obediently to what my teacher says. Open hollow corner bracket. And you're so humble too. Thank you. Yin Wu was acting like he was going to jump into his mother-in-law's arms if she was actually here. The martial king looked at Yin Wu in disbelief, but he couldn't do anything further than that because the psychic medium was probably glaring at him. He just beat his chest in frustration. And after that, Yin Wu and the martial king returned to the subject at hand. So you want me to take this guy's fragment? Yes, you need to be complete. Although the martial king had gained transcendence as a star, he didn't have a soul, so it wasn't weird for him to collapse at any moment. The only reason why he still maintained his existence was because of how powerful his conscious ego was. Tremble. Tigress wanted to scream at the fact that he was going to be offered as a live sacrifice, but his vocal cords were closed off due to fear. What could ever come out of this idiot? Oh well. In all actuality, Yin Wu didn't have any reason to keep Tigress alive. It was easier for him to kill the guy and keep it in his soul collection. The collection would keep the soul bound more tightly. But he had brought him alive here to hand over the fragment to the martial king. Slice. The constellation, Tigress, has died. The martial king swung his hand and Tigress' head flew in the air. The star fragment is revealed. Something floated above the fallen body. Whoosh. It released a stunning light. It was a light that kept anyone who watched it rapt. Its limitless and warm power had a charm that would naturally pull any human toward it. Even Yin Wu was surprised by it, so it was likely no one would be free from this magic power. So this is a piece of my soul. No, there was one person, the Martial King. He was looking at the fragment strangely. It was only the Martial King's existence that had been awakened, so he still didn't have a soul. He should have been pulled toward the fragment more than anybody else, but he was busy observing the fragment. I suppose the me who died before was really quite incredible. Just a tiny piece is this much. Ha ha ha. The Martial King seemed to have mixed feelings as he chuckled. Although he was acting calmly, he had seen something that was nearly his corpse, so it made sense he was feeling strange. But can I really eat this? I feel like something bad might happen because there's a bunch of dirty stuff on it. Tigress, fragment wasn't pure in the slightest. Every part of Tigress' life was on it. It was contaminated. Moreover, Tigress had even swallowed the Cerita and Solarium. There were many other stars he had swallowed somewhere in there as well. The fragment didn't look too appealing to the Martial King. Even though he wanted to find his soul again, if he swallowed this, the basis of his existence could be ruined. No, you don't need to worry. I've already cleaned everything off. Really? The Martial King dubiously crossed his arms. The way he was acting was foreign to Yan Wu. Is he afraid? The Martial King Yan Wu knew was confident in everything, but he was showing his weak side for what might be the first time. Yan Wu didn't know exactly what the Martial King was afraid of. Perhaps it was because of the fear that he might become someone different after swallowing the fragment, or the fact that he had to accept he wasn't the real Martial King. So Yan Wu decided to patiently wait for the Martial King to decide. The Martial King was the only one who could empower himself. Open hollow corner bracket husband. Reading her husband's mind, the psychic medium spoke softly to him. I want to live until I become a grandma with you. The words moved the Martial King, and he uncrossed his arms and stretched a hand out for the fragment. All right, I'll do it. His eyes were more determined than ever. Whoosh. The absorption of the fragment was rather anticlimactic. When the Martial King's fingertips touched the piece, the light was sucked into his hand. What? That's it. It was so unimpressive that the Martial King wondered what he'd been hesitating for. He blinked for a while after it was over. I told you, sir. You don't need to worry because I already purified it. Yeah, I guess. If I knew this was how it's gonna be You were scared. No, I wasn't. I understand. Of course. I said I wasn't. I understand. Hey, open hollow corner bracket, you're at it again. I said just moments ago to be nice to our son-in-law. No, he keeps on getting on my. Open hollow corner bracket again. He just. Open hollow corner bracket, are you okay, son-in-law? My heart just hurt a little more. Open hollow corner bracket, oh, dear. Arg. The Martial King felt so wronged by this unending cycle of events. He simmered with anger when Yan Wu smirked at him while pretending to sniff. Side story chapter 50 Marriage 5. You have regained a part of your soul. The rate of discrepancy has decreased. Your temporary rank of tester has been updated to player. The Martial King said that he didn't notice any big distinction from before, but he was actually feeling quite different. The heavy feeling, most of it has disappeared. The Martial King was able to realize his condition because of the slight discomfort coming from a small part of him. The three parts of his soul, the body, energy, and consciousness, felt like they weren't synchronized. These three were the main components of martial arts, so if they weren't in harmony, it would take a toll on his soul. If only his consciousness grew, his body might not be able to follow, and he could fall into a coma. If his body and energy became too great, he could lose control of his consciousness and become insane. The Martial King's body was currently unsynchronized. The three parts of his soul weren't connected properly. The links from his body to his energy to his mind, and his mind to his body were blocked by something. Most of this disharmony was eliminated after he transcended, but he was still lacking in many ways. However, as the system message said, the rate of discrepancy had decreased greatly. If I can gather more, the Martial King muttered to himself and clenched his fists. I will become closer to being complete. There was a height of strength the Martial King dreamed of for a long time. It was known as the highest peak that even his ancestor, Xiao Hao Jintian, wasn't able to reach. This was a peak that any martial artist, anyone who dedicated his life to the arts, anyone who gave his life to the arts, wanted to reach, the peak of life and death. The Martial King didn't know what the boundary between life and death felt like. He could only assume it was complete and without any imperfection. But if he could find all the fragments and complete his soul, becoming the true, first star, if he could become an emperor like the real Martial King that Yan Wu knew, he could learn what the boundary was like. No, even if he couldn't step onto that peak himself, the Martial King could see its shape. It was his greed and longtime yearning. When he believed his future was bright, he guaranteed himself that he'd reach this peak someday, but he'd forgotten this passion after facing the giant wall of Alpharon. Now, the passion blazed inside of him again. He wanted to live for a long time. I thought I was free from worldly desires. The Martial King reflected on himself. This damned disciple of mine has set fire to my passion again. He had awakened. It was the awakening of the man with the title of Martial King and the name Nyu. A man who wanted to rise again. Swish. The level of your existence becomes more prominent. Open hollow corner bracket honey, you. The psychic medium was surprised after reading her husband's resolve. Yi and Wu smiled faintly. He was relieved. Determination, greed, and passion, these were the emotions that moved life. Since the Martial King was determined to live anew, the tower would be shaken due to his actions. And Asgard, no matter how they tried to stop the Martial King, how would they be able to handle the man who desperately desired to become stronger? In the past, they were able to endanger the Martial King with a cheat trick, but there was no need to worry about the current Martial King, who had transcended and awakened. Most great divine beings wouldn't be able to defeat the Martial Kings. What of the gods and demons? The same went for them. Even if the heavenly world all worked together because they thought the Martial King might become the new Alpharon, even if they tried to create another massive wall, the Martial King would eagerly try and overcome it. Then, he could continue to overcome the hurdles again and again to reach the 100th floor that no one had reached. This was the future Yi and Wu saw. I can open it back up without any concern now. Yi and Wu finally decided to open up the door to the heavenly world and he looked up at the sky. He had locked the 98th floor because he thought the divine beings would become wild after Alpharon's absence, and he didn't want the Martial King to be harmed due to it. However, now, he could unlock the door without any worries. Of course, most of the gods and demons would descend to the lower world, and the conflict between mortals and transcendents would become worse. This would result in great chaos. But that's what the world of the tower was intended to be like. Yi and Wu believed such chaos would only be positive in the long run. It was true that Alpharon's ideals were valid too. The difference between the mortals and transcendents was too large, and such chaos could result in exploitation by the transcendents. However, that would only be the case if mortals couldn't grow. The world of the tower was different. There were various trials throughout the floors, and mortals could improve their strength through them. With talent and effort, they could hope to someday become transcendent too. Yi and Wu planned on ensuring their hopes could be attained, and he also intended on having the transcendents continue to improve themselves as well with the threat that they could someday be overtaken by the mortals. There would be no quiet day with all the battles and fights, but what did that matter? This was the world of the tower. The best was contested at each civilization and planet, and those who wanted to reach higher pinnacles were invited to this world. That was what the tower was. You have accessed the system settings and controls with your authority as High Guardian. What will you change? Release the lock on the 98th floor. Starting your command. In progress. Clunk. The tightly shut lock in the sky began to open. Creak, creak. The cogwheels were forced to spin, and the sleeping mechanisms awoke again. All the locking mechanisms on the 98th floor have been released. The invisible barrier that shut the sky was freed. At the same time, the disconnected channels were all connected, and all kinds of messages were delivered at once. The godly society less than Olympus greater than is taken aback at the sudden system unlock. The godly society less than Chan sect greater than expresses curiosity about your authority. The godly society less than Asgard greater than looks for a way to transport to the lower world. The demonic society less than Gia sect greater than is confused at the absence of the 77th floor. The demonic society less than Niflheim greater than is surprised by you. All gods and demons of death are flustered by the intense connection they feel to you. Metatron, the celestial scribe of less than Malak greater than, adjusts his glasses and sends you a message. Message. I did suspect it, but you has the battle of the heavenly demon and the Black King ended in the future. Ball, the leader of less than Linfernal greater than, quietly puts down the strawberry cake he was eating and sends you a message. Message. I see, I'll have much to talk to you about when I head down this time. Ball and Metatron were unforgettable beings to Yi and Wu. They ruled over absolute good and absolute evil, but they were actually pulling the strings from behind so the order of the heavenly world could be kept. They were also Uranus's companions and had attempted to protect his universe for a long time, and they were the guardians who tried to save people even while the tower was collapsing. Yi and Wu also had many things he wanted to speak to them about, like Ball said. You send a message to Metatron and Ball with your authority as High Guardian. Message. Please come visit anytime. I will accommodate you both as my grandfather's friends. Metatron flinches in surprise. Ball hums while preparing cookie sets that you might enjoy. Opening the heavenly world means those who were stuck on the 76th floor can also ascend, right? The Martial King was ever the same. The moment the entrance to the 98th floor was opened, he saw what Yi and Wu's plans were. Wasn't this what you wanted? As the sky blew, the Martial King grinned widely with crossed arms. I did, very desperately. Quote, I am the king of martial arts. I didn't credit myself with this title. It's something everyone in the tower calls me as a sign of respect. The Martial King's eyes blazed with life. Yi and Wu could see the beast he saw within the Martial King the first time they met begin to move. It was the Martial King's other ego and mirror of himself. But I still haven't reached the end of martial arts. I haven't dominated this tower that's made of martial arts. I've been stuck in this countryside because of a colossal wall. How can I be the king of martial arts when I'm so pathetic? The sleeping beast began to wake very slowly. But a new path has opened now. If I sit back and do nothing, I should just throw away that title and remain as an old neighborhood man, shouldn't I? There was an old adage, Peng Cheng Wan Li. The legendary Dapeng bird stayed in its nest and never left it, so it was difficult to imagine what it looked like. However, once the bird spread its wings wide, that wasn't the case at all. Its wings were so wide that human eyes could not capture them all, and they covered the entire sky like clouds. Each flap of its wings caused waves of 3,000 li to soar up, and the bird was able to fly 90,000 li forward. So I will climb to dominate. I will reach a higher peak than my ancestor, Xiao Hao Jintian, and speak of how low the tower is. The Martial King's beast was this Dapeng bird. But before that, there's something I must do. However, the bird wished to take care of something before spreading its wings. I still haven't properly overcome the wall that's blocked me until now. The chains that tied the bird's feet had disappeared. However, the bird was not accepting of that fact. It wanted to find the owner of the chains. I can take the path my disciple has paved for me. It will be comfortable and easy. But as your teacher, I don't wish to show such a pathetic side of myself. If not, the bird could be chained again. You want me to overcome a new obstacle when I still haven't overcome the old one? Bullshit. How is that possible? I haven't taken the first step, so it's impossible for me to take the second. I'll only fall. The Dapeng bird wanted to be free of everything before flapping its wings. So, the bird would brush off everything that tied it down and fly so high no one could reach it. It may be a burden for you, but won't you help your teacher to properly take the first step while you're already lending a hand? The bird wanted to meet Alpharon and have the final showdown. Yi and Wu realized what the Martial King meant, and he nodded in understanding. I will help you. He'll come over here soon with Sesha, so I will prepare a meeting then. Now, it was time to cleanse the Martial King of his last regrets. Side Story Chapter 51 Tea Party 1. I suppose you're going to gather the fragments now. The psychic medium didn't understand what the Martial King meant by gathering the fragments. She asked, Honey, what does that mean? The psychic medium's eye was restricted to the tower. Her eye originated from the blessing of the young Xiao Hao Jintian, and it was closely related to the system. Her near omniscience didn't apply to the stars, who were located outside of the tower. She had been wondering what needed to be done to complete her husband's soul, so she couldn't help but be curious about what the Martial King was suddenly talking about. Yi and Wu and Adora's wedding was coming up soon too. Yi and Wu was going to be a newlywed, so it didn't make sense he was leaving home. Then, psychic medium closed her mouth when she realized Yi and Wu's perception of time was very different from theirs. Emperors were freed from the limits of time and space, and they were the only unique versions of themselves anywhere. Yi and Wu might be here now, but the Black King could be looking elsewhere. The world they lived in was only a dream that Black King was dreaming of. It wasn't strange for him to be looking down on the world from a third-party perspective, or an omniscient viewpoint. And most likely, he's already examining all the world lines and their respective eras. The fact that Yi and Wu was only able to bring Tigress fragments so far could only mean one thing. The stars must be hiding in a third zone that even the Black King couldn't sense. The Heavenly Demon and the Black King were omniscient, and there was a place they couldn't see. Did such a place really exist? The existence of multiple world lines, parallel universes, and multiverses was already hard to fathom for the psychic medium. But she had no choice but to accept them since they were really happening. It almost meant Yin Wu had to take action himself to find the hidden stars. Another adventure, the psychic medium bit her lower lip. Why couldn't this child rest in peace and happiness? He was probably already exhausted mentally, so she felt apologetic at the way he was stepping up for his teacher. However, she was also eternally grateful. Open hollow corner bracket close hollow corner bracket. The psychic medium couldn't speak because she was choked up. None of them would know even if Yin Wu's trip took a while. Since he wasn't restricted by time, he would likely return to a point when not much time had passed for the rest of them. Then, he would say it hadn't been too difficult. He would never express how hard it had been. That was just the kind of child he was. Yin Wu smiled faintly, reading the psychic medium's gaze, and nodded. He would be absent for a while to search for the stars. When will you leave? Well, we should have the wedding first. And I have to watch you getting beat up by Alpharaon. Pulse. Veins popped on the Martial King's forehead. Who's getting beat up by who? Is your age already catching up to you? I didn't even say it that quietly, but you can't hear me. What, punk? The Martial King frowned in dissatisfaction as he looked at the smiling Yin Wu. In the past, even if Yin Wu acted up, he was still somewhat obedient. But now, he was treating his teacher like some neighborhood dog. If he knew Yin Wu was this much of an impudent bastard, he would have taught him a lesson before he grew so strong. These were the sorrows of a teacher. Anyway, if you make my daughter cry again, I'll crush both your legs to bits. Understood. Yin Wu smiled at the Martial King's warning. Obviously. The tower was a place where efficiency and practicality were most prioritized, so the customs of the one-horned tribe were similar to that. The traditional wedding ritual was shortened as much as possible, and most tribe members just invited their family and friends to a banquet. That was it. In some cases, ceremonies ended with just the couple drinking water from an alcohol glass. However, this was only something that applied to the tribe members. If the groom or bride in question was family to the king, the ceremony was vastly different. Moreover, Adora wasn't merely a princess. She was the daughter of the psychic medium and was considered to be the next psychic medium. Of course, her wedding would be conducted with all the bells and whistles. A traditional wedding in the one-horned tribe commenced in 6 stages. First, the napche. In the tribe, a wedding symbolized the promise between the couple, but it also symbolized the union of 2 families. So to demonstrate the solidarity of the families, both families took action first. The napche was the wedding presents and proposal sent from the groom's family to the bride's family. The proposal letter would have in detail the birth date and time of the groom so his luck and fate could divination. Then, the bride's house would compare the groom's divination with the bride's to see if they were compatible or not. If they were, they accepted the marriage. Shouldn't Jungwoo be the one to do this stuff? The problem was that there wasn't anyone to send the proposal letter in Yin Wu's family. They couldn't exactly summon Olympus because their relationship with them was awkward and it had been a while since they had any contact. So Kronos suggested bringing Jungwoo, but he was immediately smacked on the back by Rhea, who said, "You fool. You know how busy he is. He's probably busy enough learning the duties of a librarian. We'll have him come when everything is done." Then who? We have someone. Who? Honey. No, not him. Dear, although that child, Laplace, is quite mischievous, he won't cause mischief with something like this. No, he definitely will. Open hollow corner bracket hoo. I, Laplace, am honored by your faith in me, madam. Kronos tore his hair out and continued to argue that it shouldn't be Laplace, but he couldn't change Ray's mind. In the end, Laplace was the one to send the proposal letter. And no. Fortunately, Laplace was different from his usual self as he carried the chest containing the proposal letter out of the house. His trait of being a muscly skinhead didn't change, but the bunny ear headband disappeared, and he wore the traditional loose clothing of the one-horned tribe. Because he was tall and fit, he looked very reliable and imposing. Open hollow corner bracket hoo. It's very good to wear these clothes sometimes to have a change in mood. I feel like doing the bunny breakdance in these. If only Laplace could shut his mouth too. Kronos covered his face and sighed, then spoke with a solemn face. Don't ever do the bunny breakdance or whatever it's called. Open hollow corner bracket hoo. Don't worry. Don't stray from the path on your way. Open hollow corner bracket hoo. Of course. Don't suddenly rip your clothes off because you're excited. Don't do a random muscle show either. Open hollow corner bracket ah. Do you really think I'd do that, Grandmaster? Politely, and modestly, Don't act rambunctiously. Walk with slow but wide steps. Keep your words to a minimum, and look focused. Don't make facial expressions. And open hollow corner bracket hoo. My goodness, Grandmaster, you sure do have a lot of unnecessary concern for someone who was the king of gods. You should know best why I'm so worried. Kronos sighed even more deeply as Laplace brushed it off as a joke. Anyway, look serious, solemn, and strict. Don't forget these three. Open hollow corner bracket yes, sir. Roger that. Laplace exaggeratedly saluted with a shout. It only made Kronos even more anxious. But what could he do? Ria was looking at Laplace adorably. He added, then Laplace will be on his way now. Swish. Hey, don't run. Kronos let out a shout as he watched Laplace run out with his hands held out to his sides like an airplane. Second is the Munmyeong, the requesting of horoscope. Hee, you're right. Okay, then with more of a beat this time. The one who left in the flower carriage, musical note. Fell asleep while leaving, also, musical note. Also. The tribe members were eager onlookers as they watched the procession of the groom's family. It was every day they got to see something like this. People gathered behind Laplace's procession and made a crowd of people. Soon, Laplace arrived at the palace where Adora and the martial king resided. It was a palace that only the tribal kings stayed in after the one-horned tribe came over to the tower. Actually, it wasn't really large enough to be called a palace. A state would be more apt, but the decorations left by time on the building made it seem ancient and venerable, so it had a castle-like atmosphere. Olympus, the former king of gods, Kronos, and Rhea, the youngest son between them, Cha Yi and Wu, the one-horned tribe, the martial king, the leader Nyu, and the psychic medium, their daughter, the princess of the Cheongram family. Adora, please give your response to this marriage. Everyone's gaze was fixed on Laplace, who raised the chest high in front of the tightly shut palace and squared his shoulders as he shouted. The Munmyeong was an event where someone from the husband's side asked the bride's side about the bride's birth date. It was their response to the proposal letter. The bride's side would include a date in the response letter that was acceptable for the wedding ceremony, and the Napa, the groom, presenting the gifts, and the Jenin, the groom, taking a pair of ducks to the bride's house and bowing across from each other. If the bride's side opened the door wide and gave the response letter, it meant they accepted the marriage, and if the door wasn't opened, it meant the groom's side should return because they had no intention of sending their daughter away. Of course, this was just to keep up with appearances. The talks were already complete between the families. However, opening the door right away was an act that sullied the name of the bride's side, so it was customary for the groom's side to wait in front of the door for at least half a day. Due to this, Laplace stood in front of the door for a long time. He was still acting gravely, contrary to Kronos' concerns. So many people are looking at me. I love receiving people's attentive looks. I wish this moment would last forever. Although on the inside, he wasn't calm at all. Anyhow, he looked fine on the outside. Creak. And soon, the door to the palace opened wide. Side story chapter 52 Tea Party 2. Ho 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 ho. Ho 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 ho. This is that funny to you? Of course. It's so cute to see you so anxious. How could I not laugh? Yi and Wu let out a deep sigh. It was painstakingly clear his mother was definitely a part of the Cha family at times like this. She's having such a good time that I can't even say anything great. While Laplace was visiting the palace as an envoy representing the groom's family, Yi and Wu was restless. It was Laplace, of all people, who was acting as the envoy. The most disobedient troublemaker of all his subordinates. Yi and Wu had wanted to give the job to Shannon or Hanryong, or even Boo or Rebecca. But Shannon is with Jung Woo. He's probably busy right now. Yi and Wu knew the reason why they didn't call Jung Woo here was because it was one of the busiest times for him. The Changgong Library was where the history of the entire world was recorded. Moreover, the universe had recently been expanding with parallel universes and multiverses, so the scale of the library was becoming larger by day. It was a result created by the universe slowly taking its place with the battle between the Heavenly Demon and Black King paused. Yi and Wu didn't want Jung Woo to be bothered with other things. He planned on calling him over when the actual wedding ceremony took place, not during its preparation stages. Although if Jung Woo knew, he would be upset that he was excluded anyhow. That was why Yi and Wu didn't call Jung Woo, and he couldn't summon Shannon either since Shannon was helping Jung Woo. Hanryong is traveling with his son, and Rebecca is with Sir Nunnos. Hanryong and Rebecca were both spending time with beings special to them. Boo is a man of few words. Yi and Wu felt apologetic to Bu, but he questioned whether Bu could really act out the duties of an envoy with how silent he was. And it's not like I can ask the otherworld gods or Olympus either. The resident of the border and other otherworld gods didn't know the customs of this inside world, so it was likely they'd just be standing around with blank expressions. Yi and Wu hadn't had any contact with Olympus in a while either, so it was awkward to ask them. On the other hand, Laplace wasn't busy doing anything in particular, and he knew of the tower's customs and the current situation, so he was a perfect fit, and so for all these complicated and annoying reasons, Laplace ended up being the envoy in the end. Yi and Wu couldn't help but worry about the trouble Laplace might cause on the way, so he had kept open their channel of communication. Open hollow corner bracket. I'm so excited to be receiving all this attention and affection. But Yi and Wu desperately wanted to shut it off. Fortunately, Laplace didn't make any scenes, probably because of Yi and Wu warning that he'd keep him locked in the middle of emptiness for at least 10,000 years if he caused any mischief. Yi and Wu muttered to himself that Laplace better keep up what he was doing. Son, can I hug you? Yi and Wu nodded as Rhea asked with a smile. She gripped him tight. She held her son, who was at least a head taller than her, in her arms and stroked the back of his head proudly. Today will be the last day of you just being my son. Mother, it was really hard for you all this time, wasn't it? Quote, you always made sacrifices for our family. Both your dad and I are apologetic and grateful to you. Always. Quote, now, you can put down all the heavy burdens weighing down your shoulders. Quote, I'm so proud of you, my son. Yi and Wu couldn't say anything for a while. If he opened his mouth, the emotions he'd managed to keep down would suddenly pour out. Thank you for being born as my son. But it wasn't easy. Thank you for being my mother. Yi and Wu was only able to speak a long moment later. Rhea kept her son in a tight embrace. She hoped with all her heart that her son could finally be free and live happily a life of his own. This is the One-Horned Tribe's village. There is currently a big festival happening in the village. The One-Horned Tribe has made an announcement regarding this festival to all participants. The announcement is all follows. Announcement. 1. Festivals are sacred. 2. Any act of disrupting this sacred festival will be seen as a challenge to the One-Horned Tribe. 3. You are forbidden from causing any incident while the festival is taking place. 4. The village takes a neutral stance on all things political, and personal grudges between outsiders while in the village won't be permitted. 5. Stay well behaved with the other minor rules. If you don't listen, just know you'll die. Frankly, the announcement could be summed up by the 5th point. It was a violent threat that anyone who disrupted the festival or got on the tribe's bad side would end up dead. It was a blunt message that didn't take into consideration the reputation of clans who read it, so there were many who talked behind the tribe's back. But this was commonly how the One-Horned Tribe acted, so no one openly complained. As a result, despite the great number of clans, groups, players, and rankers in the tribe, nothing too eventful happened. To be honest, even if it wasn't the threat of the One-Horned Tribe, no one would do anything that would get the supreme god of Olympus, the king of gods and demons of death, ruler of the dragons of death and ghost giants, and the system's highest administrator mad. Whoa, thanks to this, Sesha was able to enjoy the festival to her heart's content. This is delicious. Sesha took a big bite of a skewer she purchased from a street vendor and let out an exclamation of astonishment. A festival of flavor exploded in her mouth from the burst of meat and vegetables with special sauce and the taste of fire. This is good too. She was captured by dumplings filled with meat juice. And so is this. The churros filled with chocolate were delicious as well. Is this heaven? Sesha had experienced many things in her life, so she didn't make any expression of emotions easily, but she was excited to return to her home, the tower. Ananta followed her daughter with a smile and was surprised the tower, a place constantly filled with wars, could give off such an atmosphere. On the way here, they had seen many people in processions, but there was no fight. Ananta saw the flags waving in the air and was taken aback by how many clans were in the tower. On the other hand, Min Chai-young, who wasn't used to seeing crowds of people, was feeling very timid. This was her first time traveling to an otherworld, so everything was foreign. The group had found out later, but Min Chai-young had never flown in an airplane either. She had never left South Korea, so it was probably even more shocking to see this world. Still, Ananta was protecting Min Chai-young by her side, and Sesha dragged her along to see this and that, so her tensions eased. After a day or two, she'd probably get used to it, wouldn't she? I hope she only sees the good things before she leaves. Ananta knew of how gruesome the tower could be, so she hoped Min Chai-young didn't have to know the pain in the tower until the end. Quote, fortunately, he's staying quiet too. Ananta smiled wryly looking at the hooded man who stayed close behind Min Chai-young, Alpharaon. He was the man who had Vivasvat's identity and Sun Jae-won's memories at the same time. Right now, most of his powers were sealed due to Yin Wu, so he looked normal, without any light coming off of him. No one would think he was Alpharaon from how he looked now. Still, Ananta knew of his hostility toward the transcendence and resentment of the world, so she was concerned he might cause trouble. Fortunately, Alpharaon just looked around with emotionless eyes, not showing any reaction. Under normal circumstances, Alpharaon would have tried to carry out his will even if Yin Wu had sealed his abilities, but reuniting with Min Chai-young must have influenced him greatly, because he was still keeping quiet obediently. Ananta was curious about Alpharaon and Min Chai-young's relationship. Did they try and complete each other because they're both imperfect? They were both missing something for a long time, so Ananta wondered if they were trying to fill each other's existences. There were many forms of love. Just like me and my husband. Upon that thought, Ananta hoped their relationship turned out well, although they were both hanging on dangerously by threads. Chai-young. Fortunately, it didn't look like Ananta had to worry about Min Chai-young too much. She wasn't alone anymore. Chai-young looked around like a scared meerkat, but Sesha tightly gripped her hand. Open corner bracket HM. I think they're putting on a performance there. Let's go see it. Open corner bracket come on. Sesha pulled Chai-young along before she could say anything. She wasn't taking no for an answer. Min Chai-young stuttered and was dragged through the crowd of people. Sesha, look where you're going. Ananta and Alpharaon followed behind them. Ananta knew nothing could stop her daughter when she was acting this way, so she was anxious that something might happen. Soon enough, the running Sesha slightly bumped into an elderly man's shoulder. He had gray hair and was wearing a blindfold. He had a distinct appearance with the large crow on one of his shoulders. Oh, I'm sorry. Sesha quickly bowed. Although it was only a soft bump, it was only right she apologized since it was her mistake, and the man might be mad. However, the one-eyed man just glanced at his shoulder and didn't say anything. Goodness, I told you not to run. I'll apologize instead. Are you all right? Ananta arrived a moment later and bowed. The atmosphere was tense. However, the man just looked between Sesha and Ananta with his one eye. He stayed silent for so long that they wondered if he was unable to speak. Cow, cow. Just then, the crow flapped its wings and let out a queer cry. It was such a loud noise that the people walking by quickly distanced themselves from the old man and glanced at him. Ananta strangely received an ominous feeling. Something she couldn't explain in words, the aura of death, something that would be felt from a battlefield, was being exuded from the man. If you're hurt anywhere, please let me. She was about to say something, but the man suddenly stretched a hand toward her. It was such a natural movement that Ananta didn't realize something was wrong. She didn't feel any murderous intent or emotion from him. Mom. Ananta only realized the ominous energy wrapped around the old man's after Sesha called for her. A skill of high level. She frantically tried to summon her magic power, but the old man's hand was already inches from her face. The fact that she might die took over her head, but another arm suddenly stretched out and annoyingly snatched the old man's hand away. Ananta turned toward the direction the hand came from, and she saw a familiar face. The new leader of Olympus, Athena, glowered at the old man with a stiff face. Did you already forget trouble won't be permitted at this place, Odin? Side Story Chapter 53 Tea Party 3. So cool. Seeing how Athena powerfully snatched Odin's hand and accosted him, Sesha realized what getting wrecked meant. She didn't understand what her friend, Park Yu-min, was talking about when she said stuff like standing and bias, but Athena was the very definition of cool. She hoped this cool Unny could take down the villainous-looking Odin. A heavy silence descended upon them. I see you're still impudent. Odin looked down at his wrist and frowned. At the same time, a violent aura began to whirl around him. Cow! A horrifying screech echoed around them. Odin's nickname was Father of Dead Warriors. It was a nickname that stuck because he collected the souls of warriors who died on the battlefield and used them as his soldiers. The screeching in the storm of power were the screams from souls who shouted Odin's name on battlefields and died after worshipping Odin. Each and every one of them was hostile toward Athena. As soon as Odin gave the order, they would dash toward her and attempt to release an onslaught of curses and bad energy. Of course, none of it would endanger Athena, since she was as powerful as Odin. With Yi and Wu entering this time period as the Black King's main ego, the chief apostle of the Black King had a strength that was equal to Kronos during his prime. Odin was well aware of this, especially since his remaining eye was the wise eye that contained all the knowledge in the world. In that short window of time, his wise eye had estimated Athena's level and given a conclusion to their potential battle. The result was very simple. Impossible. It meant Odin should never engage in a fight with Athena. However, he should be able to get on her nerves. It was the additional insight his eye gave him. So Odin glared at the new leader of Olympus who dared to bare her teeth at him. He acted like he was ready to have their showdown here if it came down to it. Of course, Athena didn't back down either. Asgard was always compared with Olympus. With Kronos out of the picture, it was said Asgard had grown in power, but as someone who dreamt of Olympus' next golden age, she couldn't back down here. No, in the first place, she didn't even consider the idea. The person she just saved was formally the niece of the king of Olympus, but on a personal level, she was her cousin. In other words, they were blood-related. Athena had her pride as the older sister, so she couldn't stay silent. You should consider where you are and what will be taking place here. Athena was so competitive that she had even emerged victorious in a standoff with her uncle, Poseidon. She had a rational personality most of the time, but in a fight, she was aggressive and never backed down. Are you saying I, Odin, need to be prudent around the one-horned tribe? Yes. What? Odin's eyes narrowed. Athena lifted a corner of her mouth. Didn't you come here because you were being prudent? Cow. The screeching became louder as rough winds twisted. Fuck, what are you doing? They warned us not to fight. Damn it. Escape first. The people standing nearby quickly began to leave, not wanting to get caught up by the winds. Swish, crack, crack. Street vendors were knocked over and the ground split open. What's the one-horned tribe doing, not stopping them? The gods of Asgard led by Odin and the gods of Olympus following Athena all raised their weapons. I see we're 5 minutes from a shitshow starting. Suddenly, a rough voice rang sinisterly in the sky. Odin's screeches and winds were ominous, but this voice contained a more threatening fear. It was demonic energy, and it was so thick and black that it was reminiscent of an abyss. Only one demon out of all the demons had this energy. Baal descends. Ba-bum. Black lightning soared through the sky and crashed down where Athena and Odin were. Athena and Odin quickly stepped back, and black whirlwinds spun where the lightning landed to slowly take the form of a human. Crackle, crackle. The level of his divinity was so great that black demonic energy came off in sparks. When a face slowly took shape, the leader of L'Infernal, Baal, was grinning ferociously. However, everyone present knew he wasn't smiling out of happiness. This is the martial king's territory. Don't think of causing trouble and making fools out of yourselves, Rumble, rumble, rumble. Visago descends. Amun descends. Barbados descends. The amount of demonic energy amplified as demon kings appeared behind Baal one by one. The demonic society less than L'Infernal greater than reveals its entirety. The aura exuded by the great army of around 70 demons was the very definition of violence. L'Infernal. All of the absolute evil is here. Those who had inwardly been looking to a clash between Athena and Odin swallowed. This was the society of absolute evil, a society that didn't even budge when great disturbances occurred in the heavenly world. Most people here had never seen a demon king in their entire lives, so they were beyond shocked. However, Odin didn't seem affected in the slightest and continued to exude a vicious aura. Baal, you dare to threaten me with your tiny gang? Baal's smile only grew. Does it seem that way? Why, are you going to apologize? I was going to say you saw right. Immediately after Baal finished speaking, an onlooker shouted upon discovering a strange phenomenon, it's an aurora. A warm ray of sunlight suddenly shined in the sky filled with dark storm clouds. Metatron descends. Michael is. Raphael is. The godly society less than Malak greater than reveals itself on the earth. Opposite of where L'Infernal was standing, archangels with their radiant wings were centered around Metatron, the celestial scribe. Celestial energy flowed in the space where the demonic energy was and pushed the storm clouds away. Even Malak, why is absolute good here? Is a war about to begin? People clamored in confusion, then Metatron suddenly began to speak with a benevolent smile. Disturbances only call for great disturbances. With Alpharon missing and all the divine beings able to descend to the lower world, the heavenly world is already unsettled. We can't allow the order of the heavenly world to be wrecked with a minor fight like this, can we? Metatron's gaze was focused on Odin and Athena. The gods of Asgard stiffened. Although Metatron might have been tactical about it, he was subtly taking Olympus' side. It's always been this way. Olympus, L'Infernal, and Malak, the three of the stronger societies in the heavenly world, were standing against Asgard. However, Odin didn't seem to be concerned. The actions of those who are on the heavenly demon's side are made to look nice on the outside. But on the inside, it's just greedy beings who are busy trying to fulfill their selfish needs. Athena, Baal, and Metatron stiffened. It was clear Odin was belittling Baal and Metatron for controlling the heavenly world behind the scenes to assist the heavenly demon. Athena knew about the secret of Olympus after having heard it from Yi and Wu. But with the heavenly demon and Black King having reconciled, Odin's wise eye flashed. It'll be amusing to watch how long this alliance of yours lasts. Quote exclamation mark quote. Quote exclamation mark quote. Quote exclamation mark quote. It's been a frequent event throughout history for alliances to be broken through internal conflict after the common enemy disappears. Athena, Metatron, and Baal couldn't deny Odin firmly for some reason. They wanted to say that wasn't true, but they knew Odin's foresight wasn't something to ignore. Odin tossed the cane he pulled out of his subspace back in and turned in the opposite direction. We will be returning to our lodgings. The godly society less than Asgard greater than retreats. SSSSSSSSs. They're just running away, but they're trying to save face until the end. Tisk tisk. How pitiful. Baal snorted as he watched Odin. It was obvious Asgard was being forced to retreat with the current situation, but it was hilarious how they were trying to save their pride. Anyhow, Athena, and niece of the Black King. Sesha was surprised when Baal called her out. He knows me. L'Infernal was a vast demonic society well known for keeping the balance and order of the 98th floor. Even she knew them. She couldn't help but be surprised that their leader knew her. Would you like a cookie? Then, when Baal dug in his pockets and pulled out a set of cookies, Sesha's eyes widened again for a different reason. Cookies were laid neatly in a square tin box. Her mouth watered seeing the ample amount of chocolate chips per cookie. Smells delicious, doesn't it? Hee hee. This is actually made of a type of cacao called the shed bean that only grows on the 83rd floor. This is very special to me, but I'll share some with you since you've both gone through a lot. Sesha's eyes turned as big as saucers. The greatest demon of the great demons was giving her a cookie set. She hesitated at the strange situation. Suddenly, Metatron appeared from behind Sesha and took a big handful of cookies, stuffing them in his mouth. You can safely eat it. Baal's hobby is baking desserts. The strawberry cakes he makes with blood strawberries from the 91st floor is also amazing. Its scent is incredible. Baal's already rugged-looking appearance turned even scarier. Hey, I never offered you any. It's all the same when it goes inside our stomachs anyway. Who cares who eats it as long as it's eaten deliciously? Yum. Ard, keep blabbering on like that, won't you? Baal glared at Metatron in disbelief, but Metatron just took another handful of cookies and swallowed joyfully. He signaled for Sesha to try some as well. Sesha hesitated for a bit and took a small bite of a cookie. It's so good. The bitter sweetness of cacao and the moistness of the well-baked cookie filled her mouth. The cookie was still warm, and her eyes widened at the texture. It was devilishly delicious. Oh, Sesha blindly savored the taste of the cookies, then regretfully realized she finished all the cookies. Metatron faintly smiled at how adorable Sesha was. Looks like the Black King's nieces enjoy Baal's special cookies very much. Would you like some more? Baal scoffed while crossing his arms. Of course she does. There's no bad person among people who know the charm of cookies. There's not much, but enjoy. But demons enjoy these cookies, don't they? Metatron, I think you should shut up. While Baal and Metatron bickered, it occurred to Sesha that she shouldn't keep this delicious goodness to herself. She wondered how she could get these to her uncle and grandfather, and she happened to overhear what Athena was saying to Baal. I don't see Lord Agaras. Did he go somewhere? Quote. Baal, who had been maintaining a composed attitude, suddenly crumpled his face and gave no response. Did something happen? Athena carefully asked. Baal recalled the words the damned idiot said before leaving L'Infernal and rubbed his throbbing temples. What? He dares to get married without my permission? Says who? This won't do. Puppy, get ready. Woof. He didn't even know what that bastard was up to. Baal sighed to himself. Side story chapter 54 Tea Party 4. How are the cookies? Are they to your liking? They're delicious. My wife will like them very much. Hey, why are you laughing like that? You're already calling her your wife. Nice times. Metatron and Baal soon received an invitation from Yi and Wu, who had already known of their descent. Wu treated them respectfully as the friends of Uranos, his grandfather. These were beings who had worked with his grandfather before the wheel of the universe began to spin, and tried to prevent the Black King's reign. Although only a minuscule portion of their power from their prime remained, their missions were still deserving of admiration. Wu requested they speak informally to him, and Ball readily agreed like the demon he was. Metatron just smiled in response. But as soon as Ball dropped the formalities, he suddenly pulled something out. He said it was a wedding present. They were cookies and tea. Wu suddenly wondered if demons ate cookies, but he recalled Ball had the same hobby before the wheel was spun. He'd said something about how baking was his only hobby in the despair of repeating universes, something along those lines. Together, they all had cookies and tea. Ball treated Wu like the grandson of his close friend, and this made Wu's heart heavier for a moment. He was reminded of his grandfather, whom he'd seen in Chronos Legends. Since Wu could rewind the wheel now, he thought about taking Adora to greet his grandfather too. Wu began to make plans to visit. You know now, right? That we were watching you all this time. The Black King chose an executor from the wheel to lead the universe to its end. Wu was chosen as the executor for this universe, and Metatron and Ball made preparations to step up in case Wu awakened. But your existence was suddenly transported somewhere else, and your aura changed entirely. As if your new aura was always yours. I was so shocked back then. Ha! Ball shivered as if he was still overcoming the shock when he realized Wu had become the Black King. For the Ball of this time period, it felt like the moment he'd been waiting for so long suddenly arrived. Will you tell us about your life? Wu nodded, ready to tell them everything. These beings deserved to know everything as they were the heroes who'd awaited the peace and safety of the world more than anything else. And that's what happened. Wu told the two the truth about everything that took place. He shared how he became the Black King, why he rewound the wheel, and his plan to search for the star fragments after the wedding ceremony was over. Ball crossed his arms and became lost in thought. Then, Metatron spoke up for the first time. Then there are two questions I have here, my lord. Clink. Metatron put his teacup down, a small action that pulled all attention to him. First, what will happen to this Yavilk who opposed you? And there's also the issue of the other executor candidate, Harmonia. Wu chuckled and responded, did you forget what the purpose of the Bureau is, sir? Purpose? Oh. Metatron tilted his head, and let out an exclamation when he belatedly came to a realization. The beings of the Bureau were spokespersons for the system. They carried out the necessary procedures the system wasn't able to do itself. So what power did Wu have over them as the system's administrator? I retrieved all his abilities as the Black King's ego. I also removed him from his guardian position. I think it's only obvious what happened after that. And Yavilk, who wasn't an ego of the Black King or a high guardian, he did have his status as a face of the heavenly demon, but all greater divine beings knew the heavenly demon didn't pay attention to his shadows. Yavilk had most likely lost the majority of his power as a face of the heavenly demon. On top of that, Yavilk was an object of fear and resentment within the Bureau due to acting as the villain for so long. There weren't many in the organization who wanted him to stay in his position. Yavilk's political enemies also wouldn't leave him alone. But Yavilk wasn't one to silently suffer, so he would step up to the fight. There were still a good number of beings who took Yavilk's side. Metatron could picture clearly the Bureau divided over internal conflict. Temper. Metatron was reminded of what Wu's subordinate called him. He quickly lifted his hand and lightly smacked himself on the lips. My bad. The way your eyes are crinkled suggests you don't feel bad at all. It's a misunderstanding, my lord. You know, the truth always comes out when faced with a fist, sir. You're quite similar to your grandfather in that aspect. The genes never went anywhere. Wu's brazen way of speaking was similar to Urano's as well. Metatron shifted to look outside the building's window. It was the direction of where the resurrected Kronos was staying. Based on what he could sense, Kronos had definitely restored his power to when he was king of gods. The Black King and the king of gods roaming the universe together. The end of things might be coming. Perhaps it wasn't the right thing to stop the wheel from spinning. Metatron decided not to think any further on the topic. He asked, then I will ask you my second question now. What will you do about this tower now, Black King? Oh, leave it alone, leave it alone. There needs to be a device in place that keeps the Black King's real body bound. Metatron stiffened, and Ball spoke up. You're trying to prepare things in advance, Just in case you get stabbed in the back when you leave for the unreal world in search of the stars. I prefer to be the one doing the stabbing. I'd hate to be stabbed by someone else. Ball had a dumbfounded expression as he turned to Metatron. I think he really is Urano's grandson. I believe it would be more accurate to say he is a more advanced version of Uranos and Kronos. All three generations are bad-tempered. Now, even Ball was starting to worry about the future of this universe, but Yianwu wasn't affected by their reactions. Anyway, so you're saying you want us to make sure no one touches the empty real body while you're absent searching for the star fragments, huh? Yes, sir. The tower will be binding the true body of the Black King, Relia, so you don't have to worry about it running wild on its own, so all we have to do is prevent stars and other small fish trying to approach it. Ball tilted his head when something suddenly occurred to him. Something's weird though. To approach Relia, they'll have to approach the tower. Then they'll be trapped inside. Ball trailed off and covered his face with his hand. So it's a trap. We need to catch the mice that are attracted to the cheese. Ball started to become scared of Yianwu. Most of the small fish were probably going to be stars. They had preyed on each other, and they were probably starving for more power. If Yianwu happened to, coincidentally, be absent, they'd gather toward the Black King's real body like moths. And that was what Yianwu was aiming for. Once they were trapped in the tower, no matter how strong they were, they wouldn't be able to escape the tower if they couldn't clear the 100th floor. That meant Yianwu could retrieve many star fragments without having to lift a finger. However, Ball was flabbergasted by Yianwu's plan. He could understand trying to create a trap for the stars, but who would think of using the Black King's real body as bait? He was at a loss for words. I suppose he's gotten to where he is today because that's how he thinks. Yianwu is fearsome in more ways than one. Anyway, so you require beings who can control and rule the creatures who enter the tower. Like what we've been doing all this time. Ball scowled at what Metatron said. I thought I could finally rest now. But you want me to suffer through that again? Yianwu shook his head firmly. Do you think I would work my grandfather's friends like slaves? I think it's plenty possible. Of course not. Yianwu's grin deepened. I will send companions to work with you. See, I told you so. Ball stood up in disbelief, but contrary to his tone, he didn't truly seem upset. Rather, he seemed curious. He had spent his entire life trying to achieve peace and balance. But now that he was being set free, he was at odds at what to do. However, Yianwu was now giving Ball a job that was similar to what he'd done in the past, but it wasn't going to be as difficult. He was definitely curious, and since he was being given companions, he wouldn't be bored anymore. So who will you send over? Metatron asked, also curious. Yianwu smiled mysteriously and raised his head. I invited them here, so they should be arriving any minute. What's this? Ball paused mid-tilt at the sudden pressure that tried to push him down and widened his eyes. Crash! The sound that echoed in the air was something that resounded not in Ball's soul, but in the abyss that lay deep beneath. Ball knew what this sound meant, so he frantically stepped outside. When he looked up, he saw it. What the F? Ball unwittingly cursed. The sky was being stained black. At the same time, it was covered by fog and countless tentacles. What in the world? Why is that appearing here? Otherworld gods. Multiple otherworld gods have appeared. Ball wasn't the only one surprised. All the guests who came to bless Yianwu's wedding couldn't contain their shock. Beings of the outside who looked gruesome to the beings of the inside, the otherworld gods who instilled fear and horror, were about to descend. The black goat of the woods with 1,000 young responds to her father's cry with a monstrous cry. The nameless mist shouts his father's name as he sweeps over. The source of uncleanliness says he washed up for the first time in a long while so he can make a good first impression on the being who will become his mother. The green flame congratulates his father's marriage and dances around. The harbinger clears his throat saying he will sing a song for his father. The 8 gods of disorder and other otherworld gods reveal themselves. Night Nox blooms. Each of the otherworld gods were larger than most planets, so only a few of them had come. However, that was more than enough to display their presence. Everyone had been hysterical when only the crawling chaos appeared in the past, so they were speechless with all the 8 gods of disorder having arrived. Just then, a giant eye opened where night bloomed. The resident of the border salutes his one and only father. By companions, did you perhaps mean? When Yianwu smiled quietly, Ball dropped his face into his hands. He almost cursed. As someone who had lived eons on hostile terms with the beings, this was something he'd never expected. Hey, Metatron. Yes, please speak, Ball. I take back what I said. That guy's a greater psycho than Uranos. I agree. Metatron smiled wryly and nodded. But just then from the other side, a gigantic shadow began to stand up. A scary-looking bunny with thick muscles was slowly becoming bigger. The Lord of the Pole begins a muscle show for his father. Open hollow corner bracket ohuhuhu. Please don't forget about me, the cutie Laplace. Laplace was an attention seeker who would rather die than have the attention stolen from him. Side story chapter 55 Tea Party 5. The third step is Napgil, notifying the bride's family of the wedding date. The letter to the fiancé's house that Laplace brought was tied in red string, which symbolized fate. In the one-horned tribe, red lines were said to have been used by matchmakers to connect the ankles of a man and a woman. A couple that was connected in this way would never split up, and they would stay together for eternity. Kronos unwittingly teared up when he saw it. He couldn't bring himself to untie the red string. His hands trembled. Wife. What is it? I can't do it. Goodness. You're so extra. Rhea chuckled at her husband. Her husband was so ferocious when he was the king of gods, and he was infamous for being cold-hearted among his subordinates. But he was so sensitive with anything relating to his children, so she couldn't help but laugh. Perhaps she loved him so much because of how much of a family man he was. Rhea comforted Kronos. Look, honey. It's not like our son is going anywhere. If anyone saw, they'd think he's going somewhere far away. You can see him whenever you want. Still, he's lived well without us. So don't think of him as a child anymore. We should let him out of our arms so he can fly. I know, he's our son, so he'll do perfectly well on his own without me worrying about him, but still. Goodness. They say men cry more as they get older, and it looks like that really is the case for you. You're acting like this when our son is getting married. I can't even imagine how you'll act when our youngest. No, Kronos burst up. Rhea looked at Kronos with a dumbfounded face. She questioned if this really was the same man who was wiping his face with a handkerchief moments ago. His face was crumpled like a napkin. It was like the king of gods from the golden age had returned. I don't know who it'll be, but I'm gonna kill them. I'm gonna kill them. No, let's get rid of them before they meet our youngest. If we tell Yi and Wu and pull the wheel forward a bit, we can see what kind of punk it'll be. Kronos' eyes blazed as he declared, and Rhea shook her head from side to side. Then, she untied the red string and read the content of the letter. She compared it to the dates they had already chosen. Napgil was the process of the groom's side choosing an acceptable date and sending the bride's side a reply. Rhea ignored Kronos, who was muttering to himself and planning the assassination of his youngest daughter's future husband. She carefully wrote a date on the letter and tied it up again with the red string. Laplace. Open hollow corner bracket yes, sir. I mean, yas queen. A shadow rose next to Rhea and Laplace appeared with a salute. He had come so fast it was hard to believe he had just been with the other 8 gods of disorder. Laplace knew very well who held the power in this household. I'll leave this to you. Open hollow corner bracket even if my body is destroyed from the hard work just like a few moments ago, I will complete this task no matter what happens. Laplace blabbered on and moved to accept the letter, but Rhea suddenly took the letter back with a stiff face. She said, no, don't do that. Open hollow corner bracket no matter what happens, do not get hurt under any circumstances. Even if it's important, there's nothing more important than your health and safety, Laplace. Open hollow corner bracket madam. Laplace suddenly teared up. No one had ever scolded him so warmly in the eons of his life. His heart was beating fast although it wasn't easily visible because it was covered by a lot of muscle. Understood. Rhea continued to speak solemnly as if she was going to wait to hear Laplace's answer until the end. Open hollow corner bracket you understood. Laplace stood straight and saluted again. Rhea grinned. Yup, that's our good boy, Laplace. She pat Laplace's head. Her hand was so warm that Laplace felt like he was going to melt on the spot. Open hollow corner bracket I, Laplace. Will continue to be your faithful bunny forever for the rest of my life. No, for all of eternity. You don't have to go that far. Just protect our family as you have so far. Open hollow corner bracket yes, ma'am. Then I, Laplace, will go and carry out your command. Forward, swish. Laplace made exaggerated movements again and left. Rhea continued to wave until Laplace went out the door. Then, she realized her husband was looking at her with a face of respect and tilted her head. Yes. My wife is so incredible. How do you have him wrapped around your finger like that? What's the secret? Secret, my foot. He just acts a little different from other people. He's very nice on the inside. Quote, he acted a little differently. Who? Laplace. The bald punk who wore bunny ears on his head. Really? Kronos wondered if the meaning of the word, little, had changed. But when he saw Ray's eyes were still pure, he nodded hesitantly. He realized Rhea wasn't joking, and she had been genuine. Perhaps she was able to control such a monstrous guy because of how nice she was. Kronos thought about how great Rhea was again. 4th, Napjang. 5th, Cheongi. Napgil was when the groom's side informed the bride's side of when the marriage would be, and Napjang was the exchange of gifts between the families now that the wedding date was confirmed. Cheongi was the process of once again reviewing the permission to marry and the wedding date now that the families were closer. However, as all three were similar, the one-horn tribe did them all together. While Kronos and the martial king exchanged greetings again and again, the festival continued. Because each of the 6 steps of the wedding ceremony was being commenced, it took a while. It was even said the wedding ceremonies of the royal tribe members took over a month, so there was no set end date for when the festival was going to be finished. The guests who initially said they weren't going to be able to visit the village managed to clear up their schedules to come at some point. And since the village was open, those who had been curious about the one-horn tribe but hadn't received invitations had come to the village as well. As a result, the palace of the martial king and the annex where Kronos was staying bustled with people. The return of the legendary Kronos and Rhea had spread in the tower, and this was also where Yian-Wu, the ruler of the tower, was staying. The main gods of Olympus also stayed near the annex as Yian-Wu's family, and the members of Arthea were given rooms along the outer territory as Yian-Wu's close friends. Kronos was so busy greeting the gods of Olympus that he didn't have the time to greet any of the other guests. Those who came in hopes of seeing Kronos and Yian-Wu from afar had to leave the annex without any success. However, there were still beings who came to see the annex, and one of them was Leo, the lion constellation. There's not much to it. Leo had a unique appearance with his lion's mane-like hair, but there wasn't anything special about him. He just looked like a well-built player from the rookie floors. This was a result of one of his traits as the lion constellation, stealth, having been activated. He was like a waiting lion before the hunt. A lion's giant body didn't make any sound before it went in for the killing blow. Stealth was the trait that made Leo into an outstanding predator, and the same went for the subordinates who stood by his side. Lions moved in prides, and the female lionesses under the lion were all outstanding hunters. They were all able to arrive at the village hiding their abilities. Leo knew Yian-Wu had started targeting the stars, but he'd come under his nose without any fear. And after Leo observed Yian-Wu and the people around him, he came to a conclusion. Yian-Wu wasn't anything to be scared of. The subordinates Leo brought, Denebola and Algiba, nodded in agreement. They had seen many beings so far. The gods of Olympus, the members of Arthea, Metatron and Baal, but none of them stood out to Leo. Maybe Athena would be hard to handle for Denebola and Algiba, but definitely not for Leo. Or maybe the 8 gods of disorder from Night, but most likely not. I was looking forward to them because of their great legends. But none of them stood out in particular. If Leo had to choose someone who concerned him, he'd choose the resident of the border. No, he could add one more being, Kronos. Kronos was already as strong, if not stronger, than his prime. However, he still didn't make Leo feel threatened or wary. Because of this, Leo was able to realize how much stronger he was than he thought. He was also brimming with confidence at this point. The Black King might not be much since he just rules over these small fish. Of course, the Black King and the Heavenly Demon weren't beings to disregard. To settle things with them, Leo needed more time and power. However, he had come to the conclusion that he wouldn't need too much time. It seems a bit of a shame to return so early. Leo's original purpose, feeling out the enemy, was completed. But the mission had been finished so easily, and he wanted to do something more stimulating. If he went back to the unreal world, all he could do was sleep for a while. Since he was already out, Leo wanted to do something. Even better if he could see the face of the Black King's main ego. He also wanted to see what the resurrected first star looked like. He asked, "How many steps are left in the wedding process?" Denebola responded with a bow at his question. "I heard only the last step is left now." "The last step, that's where the ceremony will be, right?" Leo lifted a corner of his mouth. "I wonder how angry the new groom will look and how angry he'll be when the wedding's ruined." Hoo hoo. Your wish is my command. Your wish is my command. Denebola and Algirba quietly disappeared without having to listen for any specific directions. Leo's smile deepened as he looked at the annex. I wonder. Your Highness. Yes. FWIP. Adora paused from where she was turning the page of her book and lifted her head at the butler's summons. She currently had very deep dark circles under her eyes. The psychic medium told Adora she wasn't allowed to meet Yi and Wu before the ceremony, so she was trying to contain her frustrations and anger somehow. Yi and Wu was already skilled at making people wait, and she was annoyed that she couldn't see him when they were so close. A guest told me to deliver this to you, Your Highness. Quote. They said you'd know what it was after opening it. The butler held out a wide but thin box as he spoke. Adora tilted her head, wondering if someone was trying to bribe her. When she opened the box, she was taken aback. There was a prettily written letter inside. From the third president of S fan club, Temper Cult, to the new bride. Side story chapter 56 Wedding Ceremony of Blood 1. Open hollow corner bracket What? You're coming back from where? The long-haired man, Jormungandr, wondered if he was hearing things right. He was already feeling quite uncomfortable having polymorphed into a human form, which he wasn't familiar with, but the words of his little sister, Hel, made him dumbfounded for a moment. Open hollow corner bracket Brother. Unaffected, Hel was sitting on a sofa with her feet on the table as she applied nail polish to her fingernails. Open hollow corner bracket What? Open hollow corner bracket Are your eardrums blocked? Open hollow corner bracket Close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket So annoying. Why do you keep making me repeat myself? Jormungandr had a strong urge to smack the back of the head of this troublemaker. Hel was unaware of his feelings, busy examining her nails. Her index fingernail was sparkling more brilliantly than usual, most likely because she had used a polish that was made of finely graded rubies. Open hollow corner bracket I went to that princess palace or whatever it's called. Open hollow corner bracket Exactly, why did you? Open hollow corner bracket Duh. I went to give her a letter. Jormungandr barely contained the curses that were about to pour out. Open hollow corner bracket You don't know me. I'm Hel, the third president of the Temper Cult. I should do at least this for my Oriboni, who's going on a long trip. Jormungandr rubbed his throbbing temples. He should have known from the moment Hel insisted on coming along. His foolish little sister had finally done it. This place was none other than the One-Horn Tribe's village. Monsters who considered the godly and demonic societies to be beneath them in terms of strength lived here. It wasn't an understatement to say this was the inside of a lion's den, no, a dragon's den. But his fool of a sister climbed over the walls and visited the princess's palace, the place where the very bride of this wedding was staying. It was true she had only pretended to be the princess's guest and given a letter to one of the guards, but roaming around without any permission was an act of looking down on the One-Horn Tribe. What would happen if the One-Horn Tribe decided to make an issue out of this? They were as famous for their stubbornness as they were for their strength. Jormungandr felt dizzy from trying to figure out what he was going to do if the One-Horn Tribe called them out for this. But the troublemaker behind all this was composed as ever. What should he do about this? I'm already feeling like I'm going to lose my mind after my brother's disappearance. Arg. Jormungandr didn't know why his brother and little sister ended up in this state whenever Yianwu was involved. He didn't want to think of this any longer. Musical note, musical note, musical note, musical note. While he was deep in a pit of despair, Hel was busy humming to herself as she applied a new layer of nail polish. Our Oriboni, he has a very beautiful temper. That was how the letter began. He stabs anyone he doesn't like in the back without any hesitation, and when he likes someone, he hits them in the front. You won't find anyone as unchanging as him. Adora had a hard time understanding if this letter was praising or criticizing Yianwu. The letter's tone seemed very respectful, but the content suggested otherwise. No, I think she is a fan. Based on how well the writer knew Yianwu, it seemed to be a positive letter. However, Adora wasn't jealous or anything. Rather, she was grateful that there was someone who cared for Yianwu this much. Adora somewhat felt her frustrations from not being able to see Yianwu alleviate. At the same time, one part of her was concerned. She'd heard about how celebrities received pictures with their eyes scratched out or cursing letters written in blood when it was rumored they were going out with someone. She wondered if this letter was going to be something like this. The first sentence didn't seem indicative of anything horrendous, but there could always be a twist. Still, Adora carefully treaded on. Fortunately, the sentence after that didn't have anything that she was worried about either. Since you're someone such an unchanging person has chosen, I'm sure you must be an incredible person too. Actually, it was completely the opposite. He's someone who has always fought alone. I hope he no longer has to walk such a path. I hope you always stay by ###'s side. The entire letter was filled with blessings for Yi and Woo and Adora's future. Hel was genuinely happy and relieved that Yi and Woo wasn't going to be lonely anymore. Adora could easily picture how Hel looked as she wrote this letter. She had probably been smiling. I was very encouraged seeing him steadily walk forward on his own path. Through cheering him on, I was able to escape from the limits I placed on myself, and after that, Hel wrote about why she liked Yi and Woo, and how she came to cheer him on. She laughed with him, cried for him, and chatted with him. It seemed she had been living vicariously through Yi and Woo's travels. So I hope very much that you two are happy. Although I'm sure it won't happen, on the very offhand that it might happen, if he makes you cry honey, come to Niflheim right away. I'll welcome you with both arms and fight against him on your side. Adora found herself smiling as she read the letter. She had never met Hel, but it felt like she'd gained another ally. Wait, but why is she calling me honey? Remembering that Hel was a demon who was at least thousands of years old, Adora straightened her back and stiffened. P.S. Don't think too deeply about the minor details. Oh ho 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 ho. Quote. As if Hel had read Adora's mind, she had left a plausible postscript. P.S.H. Adora grinned. She carefully folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. She probably would remember this letter for a long time. I'm going to cherish it and keep it safe. Adora stood up, her heart feeling warmed. But suddenly, a question occurred to her. Hel called herself the third president of the temper cult. Then, who's the first and second? Lastly, Chinyoung. Finally, the day of the ceremony's last step arrived. On this day, the groom would head to the bride's house and greet her, and the wedding could commence. That meant today was the wedding day. Bustle, clamor. It was beyond noisy outside. Not only had the guests who were staying in the village come in front of the annex, but even those who were here to watch the wedding were gathered in front of the annex. There was an endless buzz thrumming from the people who were here to watch Yi and Woo bring his bride. However, Yi and Woo didn't hear any of it. From early in the morning, he had to get dressed in ceremonial clothing, brush his hair, apply light makeup, and brush his eyebrows. He was so out of it that he didn't even remember everything. Phew. After a busy morning, it was now almost time to leave, and Yi and Woo's heart was beating faster than ever. Thump. What if his heart actually jumped out of his chest at this rate? He already had Cheongsimon and sleeping pills to calm down, but he didn't get a single wink of sleep last night. It was evident how nervous he was from his face. Just then, Rhea carefully approached with a smile. Are you that nervous? Mother. Yi and Woo awkwardly turned his head toward Rhea. He opened his mouth to say something, but his voice wasn't leaving his throat. You don't need to be so nervous. Everyone goes through it at least once. But, oh ho, you'll be fine. You know, on the morning of our wedding, your dad. Wife, what are you saying? Kronos frantically ran in and cut Rhea off. That's a shame. I'll tell you next time. Kronos waved his hand. Nothing happened. I'd like to hear this embarrassing bit of history sometime. Of course, I'll tell you. Erg. Yi and Woo cracked a faint smile seeing Kronos pull out his hair. Thankfully, he could feel his nervousness easing. His father and mother had probably come here for that very purpose. He was always grateful toward them. Phew. After letting out another deep breath, Yi and Woo slowly stood up. Let's go. Boo. With the toot of a horn that was reminiscent of a boat's whistle, the process began. Click, clack, thumb. Yi and Woo left the annex for the palace with Dachwada music, the sound of traditional winds and percussions, following him. The onlookers all moved forward. Oh ooh, finally. The grooms walking. The guests had only seen Laplace's procession before, so the appearance of the real groom was quite the spectacle. On top of that, Yi and Woo wearing the imposing traditional clothing of the One-Horned tribe was a sacred sight to see. Nobody would think he was nervous based on his appearance. Dang, he's definitely a looker. Well, Heaven Wing was always famous for his looks. He did make a lot of female players cry. A few players who lost their first loves to Heaven Wing recalled their painful past and cried tears of blood. Just then, someone brought up a question. Speaking of Heaven Wing, where is he? You're right, I haven't seen him. Me neither. I haven't even seen anyone who resembles him. Aren't they twins? His parents, niece, and friends are all here, but does it make sense for his little brother not to be? Did something happen? You idiot, he's the leader of Arthea and there are the gods of Olympus to help him. What could possibly happen? Right. Ha ha, ha ha ha. A conversation filled with anxiety was brought up, but it was soon buried under the cheering. And as the two strangers said, the twin brother who didn't attend his sibling's wedding was watching the ceremony from a book, high above the clouds. Open hollow corner bracket something's a bit weird. After a moment of silence, the first person to speak was Shannon. A wedding? Neither me nor Hanryong have heard anything about this. Neither did Boo. Shannon also went on and on about that song about Yian Wu's temper, but Yian Wu wasn't someone to forget those closest to him. He would never have become the main ego of the Black King if he was. The issue was that Sesha, Kronos, and Rhea could see Yian Wu's wedding, but the emperors, Cha Jungwoo and Heavenly Demon, could not see it. It didn't make sense. Shannon and the others turned toward Jungwoo and the Heavenly Demon. Quote quote, quote quote, Cha Jungwoo and the Heavenly Demon pressed their lips tight without saying anything. Side story chapter 57 Wedding Ceremony of Blood 2. Open hollow corner bracket this isn't going to end with an, everything was a dream, or, this guy's not dead yet, right? If it is, I'm gonna destroy this library. Shannon growled at the silent Heavenly Demon and Jungwoo, both of whom looked at each other inquisitively. They're memes for bad endings that were once popular on Earth. I think he's asking if this is all a dream. No, how do you even know that, Shannon? Jungwoo asked. He was surprised that someone who'd never lived on Earth knew such trends. Open hollow corner bracket is that what's important right now? Say something. Is this really a dream? Did my damned master completely assimilate with the Black King and start to play the dream? The currently developing universe was all the Black King's dream and technically, the Black King was always asleep. However, Yian Wu was able to roam around freely because the dream's owner was identifying himself with an ego in his dream. That meant the Black King was traveling in this dream with the identity of Yian Wu, and that dream was the original world line. So technically, Shannon was right. However, that wasn't what he was asking. He was demanding to know if Yian Wu had been fully synchronized with the Black King and turned back the dream to make all the events they were watching something that had never happened. Then, it made sense that the Heavenly Demon and Jungwoo weren't able to observe them happening and that only Yian Wu's records were the ones missing. Emperors were distinctly separate from the dreams of the Black King. Even if dreams were wound back to never have happened, they would never suffer the consequences. But, I think so. How do I put this? Jungwoo scratched the back of his head and smiled wryly. I think it's a bit different. Right. The Heavenly Demon nodded. Open hollow corner bracket so what's going on? By the look on your faces, you obviously know something is going on. PFT. Smirk. However, the Heavenly Demon and Jungwoo just made mysterious smiles. Shannon scowled at the foreboding atmosphere although he didn't really have a face. Well, it won't be fun if we tell him already, would it? Of course. The wise men of the past once said you shouldn't give fish to hungry people, but teach them how to fish instead. So figure it out on your own. Hee hee. Open hollow corner bracket. Shannon looked back and forth between the two in disbelief, but they had no indication of telling him the answer easily. Still, they were talking bullshit about fishing or whatever, perhaps it actually wasn't that grave a situation. Damn it, how did I get involved with these people? Shannon was flabbergasted, but he knew he would only be made fun of if he asked again. I guess I'll know if I finish this book. As of this moment, there were only two things he could do. One was to finish reading this book until the end, and the second was to desperately hope everything really was fine. The wedding ceremony of the One-Horned tribe was further divided into more steps. First, travel. This was the groom's first time going to see his bride, and this step described the procession of the groom's side traveling to the bride. Actually, the palace was a place Yian Wu was well acquainted with, but everything felt foreign today. It felt like he was walking this path as a different person. So that's what this means. Yian Wu finally realized the meaning of the word, first. No matter how familiar this path was, it felt different because his mindset before marriage and after marriage wasn't going to be the same. Until now, they were lovers, but they were going to become a real couple now. His mindset and steps as he walked down the path were naturally different. First, travel was the first step Yian Wu'd take toward becoming a couple. And when Yian Wu finally arrived at the palace. Woo, what a good-looking groom. He's super tall too. Kya, I was wondering who would take our lofty princess but she really did have a pair. Well, even shoes come in pairs, I suppose. Of course. But why don't you have one? Are you picking a fight with me? Do you want your teeth to be knocked out on a fine day like this? Can you even do it? What, you punk? The noisy tribe members, guests, and onlookers are cheered at the top of their lungs. It was truly a festival. Congratulations Emperor Temper's marriage. When will he return? If he goes now, he'll come right away, when he's ready to stab people in the back. Musical note. Oppa yesterday, honey tomorrow heart. Banners with strange messages flapped in the wind above the guests' heads, but Yi and Wu pretended not to see them. Nothing good would come out of paying attention to them. No, to be exact, he didn't even have the mind to pay attention. Gulp. Yi and Wu swallowed in front of the door to the palace. The nervousness he'd managed to ease was starting to come back up again. After taking in a few deep breaths, Yi and Wu opened the door with a newfound resolve. Creak. The large door was opened wide, and there was a red silk carpet down the center, with guests filling the seats on the carpets left and right. At the front, the parents of both families were proudly looking down at the scene. However, Yi and Wu saw none of that. The only thing that entered his vision was Adora, who was in front of a traditional wedding table. Her face was slightly covered by the luscious sleeves of her clothing. It was the first time in days he'd seen Adora. Now, she was dressed as the main character of this festival. Beautiful, stunning, amazing, that was what Yi and Wu thought he'd think of when he saw Adora, but standing here, none of those thoughts came to mind. He was just happy. She was shining so brightly, so he was just happy. Open hollow corner bracket ohohoho. The groom is obviously very nervous. Now, we'll invite the groom to the front. Then groom, please make your entrance. Laplace, who was officiating the wedding, shouted into the microphone. Bam ba ba bam. Yi and Wu began to walk forward like he was possessed. Ho ho ho, ha ha ha, it seems he doesn't know what kind of face he's making right now. Right, the guests burst out laughing. Yi and Wu had tried to fix his expression, but his face as he walked down the silk path was still quite a sight to see. The man who was always indifferent and merciless in front of enemies had a face that was stiff as stone, and his movements were jerky and awkward. His hands and feet both moved out at the same time. He looked like a machine that would start creaking because its joints were oiled. The people who knew Yi and Wu well couldn't stop laughing. Well, he probably can't even hear us laughing. Good times, good times. He doesn't even know what's in store for him after today. Phew. Oh my, what are you talking about? Are you saying you regret marrying me? And no, wife, that's not what I meant. The guests took trips down the memory lane and bickered. But Ball, who was with the demons of L'Infernal in the guest seats, frowned. It's strange how it's so quiet. Metatron, who was clapping enthusiastically next to him, turned to Ball and tilted his head. Is there a problem? No, it's just weird. Quote. I thought that bastard Odin would try something. Ah, that's what you mean. Metatron nodded in understanding. As Ball said, Odin was definitely strangely quiet these last few days. He should have been searching for opportunities to get on Yi and Wu and the Martial King's nerves. Do you think he'd try to make trouble during the ceremony? I don't think so. Although Odin is reckless, ruining this ceremony means he's declaring a war of life and death to the tribe, and the other guests won't just stay still either. He probably knows better than anyone it'll just be an act of suicide. Metatron glanced at where Asgard was. Aside from Olympus, they had the greatest numbers, so it was easy to find where they were. Odin must have felt the gaze on him because he turned his one eye to where Metatron was. He looked at Metatron as if asking what his matter was. He even exuded a murderous intent, ready for a fight. It was so very fitting of this title as the father of the battlefield. His aura didn't lack anything compared to a demon's. Metatron shook his head, signifying it was nothing. Odin's eyebrows twitched in displeasure, but he didn't make a scene. Look, it doesn't look like he's going to make a fuss. If he does pick a fight, it'll probably be after the ceremony. It was true Odin was pompous, but if that was all there was to him, he wouldn't have created the society that was Asgard today. Well, that's true. Ball nodded, pulling out a cookie and taking a bite. Crunch. I'm more worried about a certain demon, actually, Metatron said as he politely denied a cookie Ball offered him. Suddenly, Ball paused eating his cookies, and glared at Metatron with narrowed eyes. He looked like he was telling Metatron to stop speaking immediately, but Metatron wasn't as benevolent as he looked. When Metatron opened his mouth again, Ball clapped his hands over his ears and began to make bizarre noises. Blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Gares, blah blah, blah blah blah, that's weird, huh, Why can't I hear anything? There must be a ringing in my ears. I don't hear anything. Blah blah blah. Ba 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 ba. When is he coming? I don't hear you. I said I don't hear you. Ba 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 ba. Ball firmly resisted thinking or hearing of the demon. Isn't it about time for him to appear now? Niflheim actually asked if we knew anything about their first lord. I don't know. I don't want to know. I don't. Ball was just about to shout at Metatron, who just wouldn't let the subject go, when he frantically turned around at the ominous feeling that made chills run down his back. Did this punk? Metatron also turned around in amusement. On the wall that was surrounding the garden of the palace, which was currently habited by onlookers, something suddenly dropped from the sky. Thump. Ah, what is this? The people around the spot of landing fell from the impact, and all the guests in the vicinity looked toward the crash. The being in question had an aura that stood out among all the gods and demons, so they wondered who it was. No, the beings were a puppy, Woof, Fenrir, who was panting with a cute smile, and Agaras, who was transformed into a 5-year-old boy. You dare, getting married without my permission. I object. At that moment, the only thought in Metatron's head was to go hide in a hole. Side Story Chapter 58 Wedding Ceremony of Blood 3. It wasn't just Ball and Metatron who were shocked. Bustle, bustle, clamor, clamor. The wedding ceremony instantly turned into chaos. What's this? What's going on? Exactly. That's what I want to ask. Jormungandr had a dumbfounded expression. He'd had a feeling Fenrir might be up to something since he hadn't seen him in a while, but to think he'd create this big a problem. Jormungandr wanted to hide in a hole. He also wanted to shut his ears, but his damned perception senses didn't miss what the guests were muttering among themselves. Disrupting an event of Arthea and the One-Horned tribe. What are they thinking? They're probably not thinking at all. But isn't that Agaras and Fenrir? Please don't recognize them. They're not just anyone, but they're well-known transcendents. Was there some secret negotiation we don't know about with this wedding and Arthea and the One-Horned? Something that could potentially affect the entire tower. They're just fools who don't think. The murmuring guests were starting to make conspiracies now. Jormungandr wanted to go and answer each of the guests' questions, but he didn't have the mind to. Open hollow corner bracket so cool. Just then, Jormungandr heard a crazy statement. He spun to the side, and Hel's eyes were sparkling as she clasped her hands together. She looked like a young girl who was looking at some beautiful story in a fairy tale. Jormungandr's face crumpled. What do you mean, cool? Close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket. That resistance against fate. Strong determination to get one's love back. How could I not be touched? Open hollow corner bracket. What kind of bullshit is that? Hel blinked at Jormungandr's shout. You mean, dog, not bull. Oldest brother is a dog. Open hollow corner bracket. You mean wolf. Anyway, he's just making a scene for the fun of it. It was obvious based on how Fenrir's tail was spinning like a propeller. Fenrir was just enjoying causing a fuss. He was receiving attention, and he could also receive Yenwu's attention. Fenrir was as much of an attention seeker as Hel. Perhaps it was a sibling trait. Niflheim will be ruined at this rate. I somehow need to get my troublemaker brother out of there. Once again, the idea that Jormungandr needed to end this situation strongly occurred to him. However, because Fenrir had been resolved to create a mess, Jormungandr had no way of stopping him. In terms of brute strength, Fenrir was the greatest in their society. Still, there was one person who could stop Fenrir. It was the Prince of Niflheim, and the father of the siblings, Loki. Open hollow corner bracket. Ha ha ha. As expected of my son. Yes, I was worried that it might end only being boring like this. However, Loki was keeling over in laughter. He was chewing on a piece of calamari, and his legs were outstretched hanging on the chair in front of him. He clearly did not have any intention of stepping up and stopping this situation. Fuck, Jormungandr was flabbergasted. We're done for. We're all done for. Our society will be destroyed soon. Destroyed. Ha, ha ha ha. While Jormungandr laughed in disbelief, having given up. What do you want me to do? Yenwu crumpled his face and glared at Agaras and Fenrir. He was smiling widely at how pretty Adora was, but the two had come and ruined it. He wanted to kick them far away, but he stopped himself since today was a special day. He didn't want to create greater chaos either. Still, he glared at them in annoyance. Of course, neither Agaras nor Fenrir seemed afraid of Yenwu in the slightest. I object to this marriage. Woof, woof woof. Agaras put his hand on his hips and bellowed. He seemed to be trying to make a threatening face, but there was a limit to how scary and dignified he could look as a little child. The same went with Fenrir, who was in his puppy form. Why was his tail wagging so excitedly? Exactly, why? Just cause. I'm just objecting. Woof woof woof. Fenrir nodded in agreement. Yian-Wu opened his fiery golden eyes and narrowed his eyes at the two. As he did, he could read Fenrir's mind. If he gets married, he can't play with me. So of course I should object. Yian-Wu looked at them in disbelief. Ager's thoughts probably weren't too different from Fenrir's either. Causing a fuss at my wedding just so they can play with me, those ruffians, I should just send them flying away. It was Yian-Wu's fault for thinking perhaps there was a legitimate reason. Yian-Wu lifted his long sleeves up and pulled out his right hand, thinking it would be best to just get rid of them. Damn it, puppy, careful, it seems that punk is trying to censor the media. Woof. Ageris and Fenrir attempted to escape, sensing their failure at how Yian-Wu was coming out. They weren't quick to catch on, unfortunately. I'll show you what it really means to censor the media. Yian-Wu glowered. But just then, Ball appeared behind Ageris and snatched his collar. Stop, you crazy bastards. This is so embarrassing. Ball, what are you doing? Let go. What's everyone in L'Infernal doing? Hurry and get rid of this damned bastard. Ball ignored Ager's resistance and tossed him to where the demon kings of L'Infernal were. Let UMF. Ageris kicked and struggled, but the demon kings quickly tied Ageris up and gagged him, then left in a hurry. Even the demon kings, who were confident in how brazen they were so embarrassed at this situation that they quickly wanted to get out of here. The same went with Niflheim. Woof. Grr. Fenrir, who attempted to quickly escape outside of the wall, was faced by a barricade created by Jormungandr and his subordinates. No, it was a barricade of demons. They looked hilarious, each of them holding a butterfly net or dog chew toy in their hands. However, their faces were more grave than ever. A few of them swallowed in nervousness. Fenrir growled at them to get out of the way. He looked adorable in a way, but Jormungandr's face was nothing but one of annoyance. Open hollow corner bracket, go get that son of a, I mean, that dog of a brother here. Open hollow corner bracket, yes, sir. Open hollow corner bracket will do. Woof, woof. Open hollow corner bracket and make that damned barking stop. Why the heck is he keeping up that concept and not talking? Fenrir and the demons clashed. Crash, rumble. Seeing the scene, Yian-Wu let his sleeves back down again. Then, he pressed his throbbing temples. What's going on? What a shit show. I have no idea what's going on. While Ageris and Fenrir's rebellion was quickly suppressed, the guests all looked dumbstruck or confused. Based on what they saw, the conspiracies that were brought up seemed to be wrong. Open hollow corner bracket, all right, ladies and gentlemen. Please focus over here again. There was a small problem, but it has successfully been suppressed. The wedding will begin again. The guests tiled their heads, but they focused on the wedding again under Laplace's guidance. Something was definitely strange, but this was an event of the One-Horn tribe anyway. Considering their peculiarity, this was nothing. Moreover, the eldest couple here, Kronos and Rhea, and the martial king and psychic medium were busy laughing. They didn't seem too concerned. Open hollow corner bracket, all right, then we will now begin the bowing of the groom and bride. Laplace moved the mic to his mouth and was about to continue with the ceremony, when something suddenly flashed from the guests' seats. Whoosh, slice, and before he could finish, his entire body was split in half. Black shadows spurted out like blood. It was such a sudden occurrence that the guests thought they were all seeing things for a moment. Kyok, what is it this time? It's an attack, it's an attack. With the shouts of those who quickly recollected their bearings, another flash of light fell above the guests. Heimdall, Thor, Frigg, Tyr, they were the gods of Asgard. Everyone. Odin sat alone, legs crossed, in the section where all the gods of Asgard had been sitting. Kill them all, every single one of them. Asgard's divine punishment has commenced. Kra, crash, rumble, kra kra kra. The aura that spread from Odin became a storm and instantly covered the garden and the palace. An eerie cry rang in the air, and lightning poured down between the powerful winds. Odin's domain was a rainstorm of death. Its level of destructiveness couldn't be put in words. I had my doubts, but you really. Ball paused from taking care of Ageris and widened his eyes at the pandemonium Odin caused. What Ageris had done could be reduced to a thoughtless accident, but Odin and Asgard's actions were the very opposite of that. It was a declaration of war on Arthea and the One-Horned Tribe, and it was tarnishing the reputation of Malak, L'Infernal, and countless other societies. Asgard was declaring war on the entire heavenly world. Open hollow corner bracket demons of L'Infernal. Baal's voice was angrier than ever. Demonic energy echoed as he spoke in his true voice. His bellow rang loud and clear in the sky. All the demon kings looked up. At that moment, even the struggling Agaras looked up at Baal unblinking and obediently. A command from their leader Baal was absolute. So even if Agaras had caused much trouble in the past, he never evaded his duties. Open hollow corner bracket daring to create a mess in a location where we are present as a mockery of L'Infernal. Baal's eyes flashed murderously. Tear apart the gods of Asgard. Open hollow corner bracket yes, sir. Open hollow corner bracket yes, sir. Pot, whoosh. The demon kings dashed forward toward the gods of Asgard, and Agaras returned to his original form, unfurling his tens of pairs of black wings. Open hollow corner bracket you dare attempt to touch me. Agar's eyes flashed dangerously. Agar's power, wicked evil, is revealed. Open hollow corner bracket I'll do more than tear you apart. I'll rip you to shreds. Boo. With Agaras at the lead, the demons of L'Infernal followed closely after the gods of Asgard and began their attack. Pow pow pow. Archangels of Malak, assist L'Infernal. On Metatron's command, Michael and the other archangels quickly got to action. However, unlike Baal, who was blinded by hurry, Metatron's eyes were silent as the sea. Something is strange. I don't feel any will from the eyes of the gods of Asgard. Although Odin was arrogant, it didn't make sense that he was acting out so recklessly. Crash. Regardless, the chaos became bigger. The palace quaked as if it would fall any moment. Haha. Shall we leave now? Leo slowly stood up from where he was with his subordinates and began to walk through the storm. Slowly, like he was out for a stroll. Step, step. Side story chapter 59 Wedding Ceremony of Blood 4. Who dares? The martial king was furious. Although Agaras and Fenrir had caused a ruckus, he didn't mind it too much. The One-Horned Tribe was a mischievous group where the tribe members joked about their king's commands anyway, so the trouble caused by the two was within the realm of acceptable. No, inwardly, the martial king had even welcomed it. He believed a festival was better the louder it was. But of course, his daughter seemed to be displeased. However, the moment the officiator, Laplace, was attacked, it started to get on his nerves. There was a certain line that shouldn't be crossed. On this happy day, there should have been no screams of horror or violence. The martial king slapped his armrest and burst up. He lifted his sleeves, dashing toward the cause of all this, Odin, when something suddenly came at him from his blind spot. It was Denebola, the right hand of the lion constellation, Leo. How dare you? The martial king crumpled his face and turned toward Denebola with the blade of his hand. He was also brimming with confidence about himself. He believed even Alpharon couldn't defeat him if they were talking about pure ability, so he considered sneak attacks and sly tricks against him a mockery. Moreover, the martial king had transcended, and he was a star. He considered himself to be more outstanding than Kronos, who was sitting across from him, so his opponent deserved to be beaten up to death. That was what the martial king thought. Less than 8 extreme fists, secret skill break heaven greater than. Clang. But the moment his hand clashed with the sword, the martial king had different thoughts. She's holding up. Against me. Even if the martial king didn't have the proper time to get into a ready stance, his attack wasn't one that shouldn't have been blocked so easily. I see. The king of martial arts. The name isn't completely unworthy of you. Denebola smirked. Suddenly, the martial king's expression turned cold. He looked like a doll that couldn't feel any emotion. It was a rare look on the man who always had an easy smile. Of course, you're going to have to give that up too. Unaware, Denebola continued to speak nonsense and consecutively swing her sword. Shing, shing, shing. In an instant, tens of trajectories were drawn above the air and fell atop the martial king's head. It was reminiscent of a meteor shower. The martial king only managed to push aside the first 3 or 4 and couldn't even touch the rest. PFT. Denebola laughed at the martial king. She had been somewhat looking forward to it because it was said he was the Black King's teacher and he was one of the greatest in the tower, but seeing him stiffen over an attack like this, she thought what else did I expect? But really, this was only natural. No matter how strong the martial king was, it was only a strength that was outstanding in this world line, number 0. Denebola had followed Leo across countless world lines and swallowed an innumerable amount of civilizations. The martial king couldn't even be compared to her. He was just a fish in a small pond. Since she had taught him there was a great ocean outside of the pond he was in, he needed to be grateful to her after death. What? But Deneboula's thoughts weren't able to continue any longer. The martial king, who should have been lost at what to do in front of the meteor shower-like attack, had flung himself toward her. After wondering if the martial king was trying to kill himself because he was so scared, Deneboula widened her eyes a moment later. The martial king was passing through her attacks. As if he was a ghost. To be exact, the trajectories were deflected, their angles slightly twisted before reaching the martial king, so he was able to pass through. It was like all the laws of the universe were centered around him. Impossible. Deneboula tried to retreat at the strange phenomenon that wasn't logically possible, but the martial king was already in front of her. He declared, "You're the one who's going to have to give up something. Your head." Deneboula couldn't respond because the martial king already grabbed her face and was planting her to the ground. Crash. Deneboula's head was half crushed as blood spurted out. Resisting, making a counterattack, she didn't even have the chance to attempt any of that. It was all futile in front of the overwhelming martial arts. But of course, this was something as natural as breathing to the martial king, so he wasn't impressed. Boom. The martial king immediately jumped into the guest area, leaving the still-breathing Deneboula on the ground, as if she wasn't worth dealing with anymore. Then, the martial king faced Odin, who stood up like he had been waiting for this moment. Odin said, "You're finally here." With Odin's ominous laugh, a horrifying screech spread throughout the entire palace. Kia. Meanwhile, Fant was looking down at everything from the tip of a building. Where is it? Malek's archangels and Linfernal's demon kings were busy fighting against the gods of Asgard, but Fant paid it no mind. He murmured, there should definitely be someone else behind it. Fant, who had come from the far future, had incredible judgment and skill, and he was considered to have taken the one-horned tribe into a new golden age. However, his ability didn't come from wisdom or being able to read people and situations well, but his instinct. He tended to rely on his sharp animal-like gut. During both times of fortune and misfortune, his instinct was always active, showing him the proper path to take. And right now, Fante's instinct was telling him that Odin, Asgard, couldn't dare to have dreamed of planning this. There had to be someone else behind it, however, he didn't know what it was. He needed to find and eliminate it if he wanted this chaos to settle down. He didn't want his little sister's wedding to be ruined in this way. Just then, something entered Fante's vision. What's that? In the middle of the chaotic garden with frantically escaping or fighting guests, someone walked quietly along. Step, step. His footsteps were lax, as if he wasn't a part of the pandemonium surrounding him. But no one seemed to think it was strange. Rather, it was more accurate to say no one had noticed him. If Fant hadn't been carefully searching, he wouldn't have found the man either. That's the guy. Fant immediately jumped toward him. Hiya, swish. As he fell to the ground with a mighty cry, the man also stopped and looked up at Fant. The way the man's long hair flew loose in the wind stood out. Leo, also known as Regulus, widened his eyes in surprise and chuckled good-naturedly. Ha ha ha, I thought there was only trash here. I guess there is someone who's useful. Fant thought to himself that he was going to crush that arrogant mouth first as he raised his blood lightning to the maximum. Crash. Blood-red lightning crackled with an impressive thunder, falling on top of Leo's head. Erong. But Fant felt the back of his neck turn cold. He rapidly twisted to the side, and the area that was a breath's distance away from him suddenly exploded. Boom. It was an extraordinary impact that made even his blood lightning disappear. Cough. Fant was roughly flung back and rolled on the ground. Wow, you evaded that. You look pretty dim, but I guess you have good instinct, huh? Fant, covered in dust, forced himself to stand. He glowered at the amused Leo. His pride had taken a hit, but it was mentally shocking as well. He's on the same level as father. It was just a single clash. No, Fant hadn't even been able to counter, but his experience in battle allowed him to quickly realize Leo's level. The attack just now had only been a warm-up. If the two clashed directly, Fant would without being able to last a few seconds. The thought invaded Fante's mind. The man was definitely not weaker than the martial king, who had even become a star. The aura around him even made Fante's skin prickle. Where did such a guy? Fant gritted his teeth. Then, you're smiling. Leo tilted his head, not understanding Fante's reaction. Of those he faced, their reactions were either one of the two, stiffening in here, or bowing and swearing submission. It was a natural stance that one should take in front of the king of beasts, the lion, so Leo never found it strange. So it was the first time he was looking at someone grinning ear to ear like they were having the time of their lives. Ha ha ha, I thought there was no one good enough around to fight against, but I didn't need to worry. Crackle, crash, the blood lightning surrounding Fant was charged more fully than it had ever been. It was a result of his joy of meeting a strong enemy. Less than blood lightning, secret skill myriad lightning greater than. The secret skill that filled the entire world with blood-red lightning and burned it down was opened, and Fant was soon surrounded by a lightning sphere that made it hard to recognize him. Crash! With every step he took forward, every dash, every flutter of his clothes, the clash of the lightning sphere in the atmosphere made a thunder sound that was deafening. The hazy air and heat was threatening enough to immediately tear apart most transcendence. What a crazy bastard! You take care of him, Algiba. Leo summoned his left hand because it was clear dealing with this himself would only be a bother. Whoosh! The space next to Leo was twisted, and someone stepped out. He was dressed in traditional martial clothing and covered his eyes with a blindfold. He had the opposite image of Leo. Kriak! Algiba's sleeves flapped and the narrow sword that came out made the sound of nails against glass as it clashed with myriad lightning. Do. While Denebola and Odin fought with the martial king, and Algiba fought against Fant, Leo scanned the garden, which looked like it wouldn't be able to be returned to its original state. Then he turned toward the center. Yin Wu was looking back at Leo with empty eyes. His pretty bride had already disappeared somewhere else. Leo wasn't particularly interested in Adora anyway, so he grinned. It was easier without anyone to get in the way. Black King. Dim-witted darkness. The chaos before the beginning and Cha Yin Wu in the original universe. Right. If I am, pahaha, that's a relief. Do you know how much I wanted to see you? Everyone told me to avoid you and was so concerned that I wanted to see you for myself. So that's why I came. Leo raised the corners of his mouth. You can be happy. I don't usually move. I almost never get up actually. That's how much I wanted to see you. Yes, indeed. I'm happy. Ooh, you too. Why, am I so famous that even you know me? I thought I've been hiding my name well though. I don't care about your name. Yin Wu's smile seemed cold, like a predator that had a prey right in front of him. I'm just happy that a gift from my teacher came on its own feet. Side Story Chapter 60 Wedding Ceremony of Blood 5. A gift? Leo tilted his head. He laughed in disbelief. A gift for the first star? Yes. Giving a star fragment as a gift to your teacher who is also your father-in-law is a generous gift. Leo lifted the corners of his mouth. But I suppose it hasn't occurred to you that the gift may be the disappearance of his discipled son-in-law. Snap! Leo flicked his fingers. Crash! Suddenly, the entire garden shook. One of the lower gods of Asgard who had been in the middle of fighting the archangels and demon kings had exploded. As a result, it wasn't just his opponent, an archangel, who was swept away by the explosion, but so was everyone near him. A devastating scene was revealed after the dust cloud settled down. The heck, he can explode a god. There's gonna be another explosion. Watch out. The problem was that it didn't stop there. The archangels and demon kings who barely managed to escape from the explosion frantically scattered at the consecutive bursts of light. Crash, 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 boom, rumble. The gods of light were all bathed in light, causing continuous explosions. Ah, what's wrong with your body? What's wrong with me? Damn it. Don't run away. Save me before you leave. Please. Ah. The onlookers and the invited guests all escaped the palace. The archangels and demon kings who were fighting against Asgard and those on bad relations with Yin Wu all left. The same went with the one-horned tribe. While on the run, the guests suspected each other. A few in the group had suddenly exploded like the gods of Asgard. As a result, the damage that was done couldn't be put in words. It was an utter mess. Everyone doubted each other, and it was a pandemonium where no one was able to bless Yin Wu's marriage. Pahaha, how is this? I took special care in preparing this for you, who's called the father of all worlds. Leo sounded like he was having the time of his life. From what he had investigated, Yin Wu was very weak toward those he loved. From when he was a human, Yin Wu took up the sword for his brother's revenge, and he even traveled down the path to becoming the Black King to save his family. At the end of all his unprecedented actions were his family and friends that meant he was going to be the most sensitive to the harm done to his acquaintances. Leo had no way of knowing, but Yin Wu's heart was probably being crushed. Leo was aiming for a time when Yin Wu would be unsettled. Then, Yin Wu would finally show his weakness. If the channel that connected the Black King's manifestation and his true body was shaken turbulently, Leo would be able to see it. At that moment, he would tear into the channel and climb up to beat up the Black King's true body. Yi and Wu scanned his surroundings. There was no emotion in his eyes as he looked around himself. Leo thought Yi and Wu was just acting tough, but Yi and Wu then asked, "I suppose you approached the gods in advance?" Odin was a great help. Did you know one of the eyes he has is this thing called the wise eye? It's very useful. Suggestions and brainwashing work very well on it. It was useful to shake his soul. He. Leo's laughter became louder. Yi and Wu turned in another direction. It was where Odin was in the middle of battling the martial king. I thought he was a useless lower god, but he was useful for something like this. When you get the chance, you should try it sometime later. Although I don't know if you'll be able to. You're right, I don't think I will. Ha, why, are you scared? No, all I have to do is rewind it. What? Leo frowned, not understanding, and a message popped up right in front of him. According to the request of the user, the world of the dream is paused. Leo squinted to read the message, then flinched. It paused. Leo saw everything around him suddenly freeze except for him, and his heart turned cold. Those who were running away, the explosion of the gods, the dust clouds, the flying pieces of rocks, they were all paused. It wasn't that Yi and Wu stopped time with his ability, but the wheel of time itself was stopped. Leo looked at Yi and Wu with disbelief, and Yi and Wu snickered. The dream is rewound. The moment Yi and Wu twisted his right hand in the air, the world began to reverse. The flying pieces of rock returned to where they had been and became normal tiles again. The expanding dust clouds and heat took human shape again, and those who were swept away by the explosions came back to life. The scattered guests returned to where they were to congratulate the wedding of Yi and Wu and Adora, and the gods of Asgard were sitting down quietly in the guest area. The archangels, demon kings, and one-horned tribe no longer rushed around the battlefield. Even Agaras and Fenrir were flung outside the wall. And the rewinding didn't stop there. Time was spun back and forth until the day before the wedding ceremony, to a month before all the wedding processes took place, to before Yi and Wu proposed to Adora. It continued to spin back before Yi and Wu even arrived at this time period and entered the previous time. The tower crumbled, and Relia squirmed, then fell back asleep. Then it became a universe where nothing existed. It was the universe with only darkness and emptiness, the time of the beginning. The rewinding stopped there. Quote! Quote. Leo's gaze trembled from shock. That's impossible. That's too much laws of causality. The reason why Leo decided to pick a fight with Yi and Wu was that, although Yi and Wu was the Black King's main ego, he wasn't the Black King. The Black King's true body was asleep in Relia, which meant there had to be a limit to Yi and Wu's powers. If Yi and Wu tried to force the true body to move, the true body would wake up from his dream and the world would be destroyed. Leo thought Yi and Wu's moves would be limited because trying to go against the real body was going against the laws of causality, but from what he was seeing now, Yi and Wu was so free from the laws of causality that he was able to rewind time back to the very beginning of the Wheel of Time. Sorry, but I didn't even use laws of causality. Yi and Wu smirked. What do you mean? I told you, you're a wedding present for my teacher. Leo straightened his back at the sudden sense of incongruity. He looked around him. It was a universe where everything was dark. Just based on this, it looked like the universe of the beginning, but when he took a closer look, the substances of darkness weren't the same. The sides of the dimensions looked like they were being stretched out. It was something that shouldn't be happening. As long as the law of the heavenly demon's light was active, even the Black King wouldn't be able to adjust the fixed laws of the world according to his will, since this wasn't his domain. Only then did Leo realize why he was feeling a sense of incongruity. This world wasn't created naturally. It wasn't the original world line, nor was it another world line. It was a dream that the Black King was simply dreaming because he was bored. Whoosh! Leo quickly distanced himself from Yi and Wu. Since he knew he was currently in a trap, the only thing he could do was run away. Too slow. However, Yi and Wu scoffed at Leo and stretched a hand toward him. He didn't even think to chase after him. This entire world was a temporary stage he created, so why should he do the bothersome act of running? Swish! The world twisted, and laws moved. Dark substances were gathered into one and transformed into chains that shot toward Leo. Clatter! Damn it! Leo was disbelieving of everything that was going on. He'd confirmed this world was the original several times, coming over from the unreal world. Who would have imagined the world he thought was an original was actually a trap? It was something only the Black King would have thought of. Don't come here. Leo crumpled his face at the chains that followed closely at his heels. Pow, pow, pow. Crash. He punched the air in front of him, and space was twisted and destroyed as the chains were deflected. But the chains started to chase after his weak spot again. Craw, kra, craw. Swish. Leo frustratedly kicked the chains coming for his ankles and shouted, "Why won't it open?" From a while ago, Leo'd been trying to open a door that led to the unreal world. But strangely, he couldn't connect to the outside at all. It felt like he was blocked by something firm. "Oh, sorry, but you won't be able to return to where you came from. This world is already isolated from the others and is being managed separately." That meant this world was pretty much like a closed jail cell. Ah, the longer Leo's scream went on, the deeper Yi and Wu's smile became. "I knew this method was right. I've managed to trap a big fly." After capturing Tigress, Yi and Wu became certain the stars would somehow attempt to attack him or the Martial King. Their end goal was to obtain the other star fragments and obtain the omniscience that composed the world to be the one and the only true god of the new world. So, to catch the big fish, Yi and Wu used himself as bait and began to dream a new dream. While he created a dream that was exactly like the original world line to attract the stars, he moved in this dream like it was reality. The Martial King's resurrection, the meeting between the two families, getting married to Adora, this was a part of the history that was used in the original world line and a part of the true dream he was dreaming. In the end, Yi and Wu had managed to catch the lion constellation, so Yi and Wu was in good spirits. One part of him also wondered how he should make this bastard who dared to ruin his wedding, even if it hadn't been real. Yi and Wu's anger wouldn't be sated simply by capturing Leo. He had to force the star to give up all information by twisting and squeezing his soul. From the way to approach the unreal world to how to find the bastard's everything. Damn it, the growing amount of chains must have been too much for Leo to deal with because he just dashed directly toward Yi and Wu. Based on the veins that popped out of his forehead, it seemed he was resentful at the fact that he was played by Yi and Wu. Of course, Yi and Wu just scoffed. Did that idiot not even remember how he picked a fight first? It was hilarious how he was acting like the victim. Clatter. The chains took over Leo like an arrow lying in wait. Leo's fist was stopped right in front of Yi and Wu. He stiffened and trembled. His fist that wanted to shred Yi and Wu's face apart shook precariously. But as he was bound by divine iron, it was almost impossible for him to activate his holy power. Leo was already bound in chains like a cocoon, and only one of his eyes could be seen. "You fucking bastard." Leo's furious eyes were bloodshot. "Thank you for the compliment." With a cold smile, Yi and Wu tightly shut the lock around the chains and opened emptiness. Clatter, clank, clank, clank. The emptiness opened wide like a beast going after a delicious meal. "I'll have to move you as carefully as possible. I can't let there be anything wrong with my gift." Yi and Wu's smirk finally turned into a smile. Talk. Jung Wu shut the book he was reading and shook his head. His eyes were empty, like those of a dead fish's. Who exactly is good and evil here? Open hollow corner bracket bam, bam, ba-bum, bam. In the 4 beats, musical note there's temper, backstabbing, and Yi and Wu, musical note close hollow corner bracket behind Jung Wu, Shannon was singing at the top of his lungs. Side story chapter 61 and 1. Still, with this, now I have a grasp of what happened. The heavenly demon nodded at Jung Wu's words. I didn't think he'd create a trap this way. They now knew why Yi and Wu's records didn't exist. Everything they'd seen was fake. It was a dream that wasn't recorded as reality. And because they were untrue, they weren't recorded in the Chang'an library. Utilizing the original world line in a fake dream, it's definitely something only the Black King would think of doing. The Black King's dream could cause ripples in other world lines. It was something that influenced the entire universe, and if he accidentally were to blink his eyes open, it could bring forth the end of the entire world. So Yi and Wu had tried not to show his powers as the Black King too much. However, it was different this time. He moved between the fake dream and the original, acting sincerely in both of them, and he changed directions at the last minute. In that process, no other world lines were influenced. Yi and Wu had become more familiar with the Black King's abilities now. He's definitely fast. If I think of how long it took me to perfectly learn how to use the Heavenly Demon's power. The Heavenly Demon could only say with confidence that he understood his full powers after the wheel was spun about 4 or 5 times. He was quite annoyed at the endless battle with the Black King, and he'd been contemplating how he could put him to sleep forever. In the process, after much training, he was finally able to reach his full potential. Of course, the Black King was motivated to wake up faster because the heavenly demon became stronger, so it was pretty futile. Anyhow, Yin Wu was rapidly learning his powers compared to the centuries the heavenly demon had required. That means he's almost finished with transcending too, I suppose. The heavenly demon stroked his chin and searched up the rate of progress Yin Wu had achieved in the book they just read. Rate of change, 61%. As expected, he's picked up the pace. The rate of change that was only fast in the beginning and began to slow down had sped up again. This wasn't an event that should be glossed over. If the Black King's transcendence is complete, what'll happen then? The heavenly demon and Black King's longtime battle was finished, and a new era had opened. Now, the Black King was preparing his new comeback. No one, not even the heavenly demon, who transcended all eras, knew what it would result in. Well, it's obvious those stars over there will be used as sacrifices. However, there were still questions left unanswered. How many pages are left? This is the last page. The heavenly demon nodded at Jungwoo to quickly open it. Jungwoo swallowed the flip the last page. Yin Wu waved his hand in the air as he looked at Leo, who was glowering at him. Clatter. The chains that bound Leo became tighter. Black King, quack, I will repay this humiliation no matter what. Yin Wu ignored Leo's bullshit and proceeded to tear his spiritual body apart. There were no screams. It was a futile end for the lion constellation who was called the leader of the stars. Whoosh. Leo has died. You have obtained a star fragment. A shining object floated above where Leo was torn apart. It was the star fragment, similar to what Yin Wu had given to the Martial King before. When Yin Wu extended his hand for it, it came whirling inside his palm. The dream world is fading. KRRRR. The world surrounding Yin Wu began to collapse. Since it had served its purpose, he stopped dreaming. What appeared instead of the destroyed world was a world where all time was paused, the original world line. It was paused exactly at the highlight of the wedding, the bowing of the groom and bride. The world was separated exactly from when Leo stood up to where he was. Yin Wu looked fondly at Adora, who was bowing with traditional rouge applied on her cheeks, and he sighed, then turned in the opposite direction. But just then. Why are you sighing on a good day like this? You're still mad. Yin Wu jumped in surprise. The Martial King was clicking his tongue at him as he picked his ear with his pinky. The Martial King added, why are you so surprised? What, are you shocked that your great teacher is moving? Yin Wu found himself nodding before he knew it. He hadn't artificially paused the world, and even the expansion of the world had stopped. No matter how incredible you were, unless you were an emperor, it was impossible for you to move independently. However, the Martial King didn't look like he was experiencing any discomfort at all. The level of his soul still isn't complete. Considering that the Martial King was currently a vestige body without a soul, he truly had an incredible determination. He must have felt Yin Wu's surprise because he smirked and shrugged his shoulders. What are you so surprised about? It's like not doing amazing things is a rare occurrence for me. Ha ha ha. The Martial King burst out laughing for a while, but then he suddenly stopped and looked at Yin Wu. His silent gaze created a sad and bitter atmosphere. The thing in your hand. You were going to give it to me and leave right away, weren't you? You're like a ghost, knowing everything. Yin Wu smiled wryly. I am a ghost though, aren't I? I'm leaving so you don't have to stay like that forever. Yin Wu had already read all the thoughts in Leo's mind while obtaining his star fragment. As a result, he was able to learn how to enter the unreal world, the world where the stars resided. He could open the door. However, this required a substantial amount of preparation. The unreal world was a completely different world where the laws of the heavenly demon and Black King didn't work. To enter it, he had no choice but to seal most of his power as the Black King. He would only enter with his consciousness as Cha Yin Wu. Yin Wu might have to start from scratch in that world. And if he died, his body as the Black King would remain, but his ego as Cha Yin Wu would be deleted. Then, everything would return to the old days of reincarnation, when the wheel was spun endlessly. And since he was trying to fight a war against the stars, who most definitely had it out for him, it was practically a suicide mission. Still, Yin Wu was going to enter the unreal world. Like he'd told the Martial King, he needed to collect all the star fragments for the Martial King's resurrection to be complete. However, he'd been planning on hiding how dangerous it was as much as possible and returning before the Martial King and Adora caught on. If Yin Wu left with the time of this world forced frozen and went to the unreal world, it would only be a short blip for them. They wouldn't have to worry about him. But his plan to return as quietly as possible was ruined from the start. It was very much like his teacher to do so. Logic didn't apply to the Martial King. Since you say you're going, I won't stop you. I'm sure you have your plans too. The Martial King didn't try to stop Yianwu from leaving. No, in the first place, he never intended to. It wasn't because of his personal greed to be resurrected, but because he trusted his disciple. He had absolute faith that Yianwu would return without getting hurt. Yianwu could feel the trust in him and nodded solemnly. He gave the star fragment in his hand to the Martial King. From Leo to the subordinates he'd brought along, Denabola and Algiba, the total of 3 fragments transformed into rays of light and were absorbed by the Martial King. CHHT. While the Martial King closed his eyes to absorb all the energy, Yianwu bowed at Kronos, who had silently been watching them from some point. Although later than the Martial King, his father had also woken up from the restriction of time. I'll return, father. You don't need me to come with you. I can do it perfectly fine on my own. All right, I understand. Take care. I'll watch over my daughter-in-law too. Kronos turned to the side and wiped his eyes that were slowly turning red. He was trying to act as dignified as possible, but it wasn't easy for him to rein in the emotions. And like that, Yianwu closed his eyes after finishing his goodbyes to his teacher and father. After entering the unreal world, the restrictions of time set on Metatron and Baal would also be released. The two would return to the tower with the 8 gods of disorder as they'd promised. Yianwu would provide a trap there and capture all the stars who came after Relia. Even without it, though, he wasn't too worried about this world. His other self, the same blood and flesh as him, would be here. Jungwoo, you're watching this, right? Yianwu thought of the face of his brother, who would be or was watching this from the Chang'an library. Keep this place safe until I come back. And make sure no one hits on your sister-in-law. With a mischievous last smile, Yianwu's body disappeared in light, as if he had never existed in this world. He does everything his way, always. Geez. Talk. Jungwoo snapped shut the cover of the book inside. From the moment he couldn't find Yianwu and Yianwu started his wedding without him, he'd had his doubts, but it seemed like his doubts were becoming true. Yianwu was essentially telling Jungwoo to clean up after his mess. The reason why he hadn't invited him to the wedding was because he knew Jungwoo would try to stop him if he said he was entering the unreal world. How was someone so unchanging? Jungwoo pressed his throbbing temples and organized his thoughts. The water's already spilled, it's not like I can force him out either, so I should do what I can for now. Jungwoo's eyes turned contemplative. There's 2 things Hung's aiming for with this. Jungwoo's mind spun quickly. First is to collect all the star fragments, and second, his eyes flashed coldly. To complete transcending. Collecting the star fragments was to complete the existence of the unstable Martial King as well as prevent the stars from wreaking havoc on multiple world lines. From Jungwoo's perspective, stars were nothing more than pests. However, due to their traits, it was difficult to eradicate them, and there were many things he had to be worried about. So Jungwoo understood why Yianwu jumped directly into the source of it all. However, Jungwoo thought that Yianwu's biggest objective was the second reason, which was complete transcendence. Technically, Yianwu was currently in a cocoon-like state. He was a caterpillar growing inside its hard cocoon, desperately wishing to wake up someday. And when he managed to pierce through his shell, even Jungwoo couldn't imagine what Yianwu would look like. Yianwu probably didn't know either. No one in this world had ever stepped foot inside the territory that was beyond Emperor. The result could be good, or it could be bad. It was a case of SCHR. Dinger's cat. No one knew what the condition of the cat trapped inside the box would be before the lid was opened. So he probably wants to increase the chances of things turning out the way he wants them to. No one knew what Yianwu would be like after he broke out of the shell. However, it was definitely predictable that his existence would surpass the current universe's system. And his consciousness could probably reach the unreal world too. He wants to experience the unreal world before his transcendence is complete and become familiar with his transcendence through it. If he has the experience, he'll be able to control whatever shape the transcendence takes after. There was also the benefit that Yianwu could dramatically speed up the rate of progress through the new stimulation. Or he could slowly stain the unreal world with the color of the Black King. Of course, it was that much riskier as well. Until he could stain the unreal world with darkness and somewhat be able to pull from that power, Yianwu's actions would be limited. In the end, the unreal world is the territory of the stars. Tossing aside the omniscience and omnipotence Yianwu obtained so far and starting from scratch in the unreal world again. It was nonsense. But Yi and Wu was truly attempting to do it. Do whatever you want, sheesh. Cha Jung-woo let out a deep sigh. Yi and Wu left without a word to him, so he couldn't do much right now. All he could do from here was pray desperately for Yi and Wu to return safely. Now, he could start searching if there was any other way he could help. Mr. Heavenly Demon. Jung-woo turned to look at the Heavenly Demon. The Heavenly Demon made a mysterious smile as if he already knew what Jung-woo was thinking. You want to ask me if there's a way to confirm the events going on in the unreal world, right? Yes, sir. Jung-woo nodded gravely. Darkness will increasingly stain the world the more my brother causes trouble over there. Then that must mean that the chances of being able to see him will be higher. And then the events will be automatically recorded in the Chang'an library, is that what you're saying? Is that possible? No, it's impossible. Oh. The Heavenly Demon nodded. Cha Jung-woo sighed in disappointment. Open hollow corner bracket. Excuse me, Mr. Heavenly Demon. Why are you saying we can't? I may not have completely understood before because I'm dumb, but wouldn't the dream naturally be incorporated over there if our Emperor Temper starts making tides? That's true. However, the Chang'an library only records events from within boundaries that, I know. I'm saying I'm the principal agent. Open hollow corner bracket. Then that means it's impossible to find out anything about the unreal world unless you enter it yourself. Yes. Open hollow corner bracket. Then if you could help master from there. Shannon pressed his lips together when he saw the Heavenly Demon's steady gaze on him. The Heavenly Demon's fiery golden eyes contained no emotion. It was as if the light banter they'd been exchanging only moments ago was all a lie. Shannon belatedly realized his mistake. I apologize. That was rude of me. I was hasty and close. Hollow corner bracket. Let's not cross the line. I apologize if you were offended. I will apologize in his stead. Only after Jung-woo stepped in did the Heavenly Demon relax his fiery golden eyes. He scratched the back of his head, muttering, I know how both of you feel, but who will manage this place if I leave too? I'm already overburdened as it is. It was true the Heavenly Demo was assisting them greatly, and that he was treating them with goodwill. However, the Black King and the Heavenly Demon were like two sides of a coin that could never coexist. They had fought for eons, spinning the wheel endlessly, until just recently. But to ask the Heavenly Demon for help in saving the Black King, they would be putting the Heavenly Demon in the same danger. If something were to go wrong with the both of them, the creation of the universe would be finished. From then, the stars would start to roam wild without having to worry about anyone stopping them. It would be the beginning of true hell. That was why the Heavenly Demon denied Shannon's suggestion. Well, just then, the Heavenly Demon smiled roguishly. I suppose it would be weird to sit still and do nothing, huh? Quote? Open hollow corner bracket. Jung-woo and Shannon turned to the Heavenly Demon simultaneously, and the Heavenly Demon waved his hand in the air. Whoosh. System messages popped up consecutively in the air. The Chang'an Library's control system commences operation with the authority of the Special Administrator. The Chang'an Library's jurisdiction is expanded. Expanded territory. Unreal world. The territory is a new domain that hasn't been reached by light. More data is required for an update. New search modules are designed for a smoother search. A new algorithm is adopted. Warning. This is an attempt that is beyond the authority of the Special Administrator. A forced request may cause a bad influence on your domain. Would you still like to proceed? You have chosen to proceed. The operation is resumed. Looking at the onslaught of new messages, Jung-woo and Shannon realized the Heavenly Demon was taking a risk to help them. They didn't know how dangerous the attempt was, but based on the contents of the messages, it definitely wasn't something simple. Still, they didn't try to stop him. That would have been an act of disgracing him. Efficient modules cannot be designed. More data is necessary. The search range is minimized. An observer is designated to collect the data. Jung-woo stretched his hand out in the air as he saw the messages. Light shone as a new book appeared. It was an empty book, but that wouldn't be the case a few moments later. Events centered around Yi and Wu would soon be written in this book. Jung-woo's divine name was Deus Ex Machina. He was the god of mechanics to mechanically record and interpret all information. In this field, he was better than the Heavenly Demon. At this moment, Jung-woo's full attention and consciousness was focused on the book. A short while later, whoosh. The characters, Cha Yi and Wu, were written on the cover of the book. Not Black King, but Cha Yi and Wu. It meant a module based on the information Yi and Wu collected in the unreal world was completed. The heavenly demon had the control system of the Chenggong library focused on Yi and Wu, and Zheng Wu was in charge of recording the collected information. Flutter. The book opened and the pages flipped over as words were written on the white paper. This place. Like an essay or a diary, Yi and Wu's thoughts were starting to be recorded. It felt strange for Zheng Wu, as he had once left a diary behind for Yi and Wu, but their places were switched now. Is a lot different than what I thought. That was the very first sentence of Yi and Wu's diary. The modern universe was created when a very small light suddenly exploded in a world filled only with darkness. The rapidly expanded universe resulted in both matter and antimatter. Most of the antimatter was transformed into matter and used for the expansion of the universe, but what wasn't used simply bounced somewhere out of the universe. The antimatter and other waste that wasn't used in the creation of the universe combined together to create a new world, the unreal world. And since it was a world created by the scattered pieces of the egg Pengu broke out of, Yi and Wu thought it was only a world in name. It couldn't be a proper world. But I was wrong. Yi and Wu laughed in disbelief as he looked over the information from Leo. This place has its own laws of nature as well. In fact, this world was operating pretty similarly to the real world Yi and Wu had been in. It's like it was copied from the real world like a reflection in the mirror. Mirrors reflected the world. The contents inside a mirror were exactly the same as what it was reflecting. However, it was only a reflection, and it could never be the real thing. That was what the unreal world was like. It was reflecting the wheel spun by cogs, the Black King and the heavenly demon. And that was what the stars wanted. Creation was the ultimate purpose they wished to achieve. They had created the unreal world in this manner so they could practice. They also want to destroy the wheel completely and keep their world as the real one. There was nothing that great about the cogs of the wheel or creation, but it seemed these stars wanted to reach it. Yi and Wu scoffed, but he also thought it was for the better. I'll retrieve all the fragments here and complete my transcendence. He specified his purpose and searched for a way to manifest himself first. I have to hide my existence here for now, so I should use a body that's already active. If it was someone already living in the unreal world, there was no way the stars would know even if Yi and Wu projected his identity on the being. In other words, he needed to find a vessel to possess. He couldn't steal the body of someone who was perfectly alive and well, so it needed to be someone who was on the verge of death or had recently died. The being also needed to be strong to hold Yi and Wu's identity. If the being's synchronization rate with the Black King is naturally high, there won't be any issues when I summon my powers from my true body. Yi and Wu wondered if there would be a vessel that could satisfy all these particular conditions, but it was a body he needed to use for a while with all his powers sealed, so he needed to choose well. Whoosh! After closely examining every crevice of the world, Yi and Wu was finally able to find a soul that resonated well with darkness. Of course, that didn't mean he could just possess the body. Just when he was about to confirm the condition of the vessel. Someone has sensed your consciousness. Already, Yi and Wu jolted at the warning message. He did expect one of the stars would discover his invading consciousness, but he didn't know it would be this quick. Had they already learned of Leo's disappearance? Or did they coincidentally happen to find him? Yi and Wu didn't know what the reason was, but he was certain of one thing. If he was caught, things would be really bad. I have no choice. Yi and Wu decided to risk it and moved toward the being he found moments earlier. Your consciousness invades the being. You are attempting to possess this human. Checking the conditions of the being. The one who has discovered you is approaching your vicinity. Yi and Wu started to become anxious. They are closing in. Warning. They are becoming closer. Just before the star's gaze reached Yi and Wu's consciousness, Yi and Wu felt his consciousness swept elsewhere. You have successfully possessed the being. The first thing that came to mind was how uncomfortable it was. It was like a prison that was too small to even stand. The particular someone did not find you. The star scratches their head in confusion and leaves the territory. It didn't feel all too good to return to living as a normal human when Yi and Wu'd been the omniscient Black King. His vessel must not have been healthy in a few places because his body was screaming at him, but it was a relief he was able to avoid the eyes of the star. I should find out where this place is first. Just when Yi and Wu opened his closed eyes, he saw something flying toward his face while a shrill shout rang out. You lazy slave bastard, hurry up and move along. It was a whip with sharp thorns embedded into it. Side story part 1 complete. Dash 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 dash. Authors afterward. The side stories started in January have already come to an end. There are many sections I regret not delivering properly, but I will make sure to continue telling the story in Season 2. Since the brainstorming process, I have already decided to split the side stories into 2 seasons. The first season would contain more of the epilogue of the main story, and the second season was to show the various facets of the world line. However, I was having difficulties managing my work schedule between both my new novel Less Than. Official title: The Divine Twilight's Return, greater than in this epilogue. I took over 1 month to catch up, and I was frequently on hiatus. It was all due to how inexperienced I was in my lack of sufficient preparations, and I want to take this opportunity to apologize to my readers once more. That is why the Season 2 of the epilogue, in which a new story will begin after much more preparation. I cannot guarantee any dates, but I'll carefully estimate it to be maybe around the time when I've finished Less Than the Divine Twilight's Return, greater than in the universe world line I am writing is somewhat better developed. Of course, I don't plan on being irresponsible and taking more than a year. The works that are a part of the Less Than Second Life ranker greater than universe are as follows. Less Than, greater than unofficial title, Tales from a New Age. Less Than Second Life ranker greater than. Less Than, greater than unofficial title, Sword God, Light Dragon. Less Than, greater than unofficial title, Talent Swallowing Magician. In the case of Less Than Talent Swallowing Magician greater than, it is a work I directed, I didn't write it personally, and its mobile game and webtoon are planned for launch in the latter half of this year. Aside from that, I am planning various works with a few brilliant writers who will make this universe shine. The Seduyan universe, this is a temporary name. I haven't chosen a specific name yet. Won't be restricted to free web novels, but it will be shown through several forms of media, so please look forward to it. On a side note, the universe will be prepared in a way that makes it approachable without having to read any of the other mentioned works. But of course, you'll be able to find fun Easter eggs if you've read the other works. I will return with more fun side stories. The hot summer has gone by, and autumn is now coming. I hope you all take care not to become sick while the seasons change. Thank you. Si Dao, Yuan, Seduyan.